employees and not a private company. And two rival companies are planning to build commuter rail corridors in Milwaukee and surrounding suburbs, packed with high-density housing, retail, and offices. Outside tonight, mostly clear, low of 15 in Milwaukee, 11 degrees in Madison. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, happy Festivus Friday to you, my little buddy.
Thanks, Crudy. Happy Festivus Friday to you as well. Always great to see you in studio, my friend. I have a feeling we'll be airing lots of grievances today.
Dominic, TGI, Mueller time.
Yes.
It is Mueller time. It's time to relax. It'll be kind of special. We're going to have a fine guest joining us in the Brady Street studios. James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. He is our Mueller time resource extraordinaire. And today he's coming down here, Dom. I can't wait. I made a special trip just to see Jim. It's just to relish the filings in the Manafort, the filing in the Michael Cohen. Hell, Comey's going before the House Republicans. One last fling over there.
And maybe, if we're lucky, the cherry on top, Maria Butina, maybe? And, of course, we're losing a new resident, a new friend that we had in the state of Wisconsin last couple of weeks, Curdy. Papadopoulos is getting out of jail today.
Oh, get out of jail today? Yeah. So soon, only 2 weeks. Who do you think will get the, before we jump into the other headlines, of the, I sort of thought of these sentencing things right there, the pre-sentencing statements from the special counsel. In Manafort, apparently kind of blew it, right? Blew the plea agreement.
Playing all sides.
And we know Michael Flynn. I mean, how does Michael Flynn get a recommendation of no jail time? Even Papadopoulos got 2 weeks in club bed. And then who's the other one? Michael Cohen. Cohen, who maybe is turned star witness for the state, but he didn't do so of his own volition. It wasn't until after, the pre-dawn paramilitary raid.
Well, and what does he know? I mean, there's lots of angles that Cohen could be very helpful to Mueller on.
Well, when they got not only the house, not only the office, but also the storage locker in the hotel room.
Yeah, right.
That Donald Trump's goose is cooked, and today being reported by CNN and others, apparently John Kelly, the chief of staff, he already gave his testimony to the special counsel, that about obstruction of justice. Can't wait for James Santelle to come down to Brady Street.
Lots to talk about today.
I'm very, very excited about that. Also, some commentary by our friend, fine comedian, Milwaukee's own Will Durst. We'll work that in the 3 o'clock hour as well. But Dom, lame duck coup going on in our backyard. It's not done yet. There's still some modicum of...
Oh, you mean that rebalancing of the 3 separate co-equal branches of government that, apparently not a lot of Americans know about, since, Speaker Voss tweeted out some CNN statistic that most people don't know how government works, Crudy, so Voss is going to fix it for us.
Well, thank you, Speaker Voss. Boss Voss has got all the solutions for the great state of Wisconsin, and he will be Boss Voss at least until another redistricting, because that gerrymandering, that pretty much cemented his title for the long haul.
It works.
If nothing changes, Boss Voss could have that position till he dies. Or democracy dies, whichever comes first.
It'll be close.
It will be a foot race. Dom, Charlie Sykes Whitey, Charlie Sykes.
Come on, that's a long time ago.
You know, it galls me a little bit that he gets the MSNBC contributor title. How's Charlie Sykes going to cash a liberal, progressive, lefty paycheck and they don't call us? We've never been on MSNBC. Hell, I've been on Fox, but I've never been on MSNBC.
Well, because they have to bring in the other side, Crudy, right? To present it from the center right, as I think Charlie would like to consider himself. Of course, taking no responsibility for what's going on here in the state of Wisconsin. He's kind of like a lot of these other Republicans that decided to retire once Trump got elected.
Well, Dom, I think Charlie Sykes, in this media market we're broadcasting from in Milwaukee, Charlie Sykes owned the mornings. Mark Belling owned the afternoons, at least till we came around. But Charlie Sykes, like 23 years on the job.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Whitey, Charlie Sykes. Well, he is now, on top of contributing and cashing checks from MSNBC, apparently he also writes op-ed pieces for The Atlantic. Dom, we found this one there. And the headline, we don't know if Sykes wrote that or not. Wisconsin Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot. And then the subheadline, this one I suspect by Sykes, my friend Scott Walker should not sign the power-grabbing legislation. Well, before we read this piece, Tom, I predict Scott Walker will take Charlie Sykes' advice. He will not sign the lame duck bills. He will, in the most cowardly way possible, simply allow them statutorily to become law without ever putting his fingerprint on the bills.
So he can, the current governor, the outgoing governor, Republican Scott Walker, can simply ignore this terrible legislation, this lame duck coup legislation put before him, and if he just waits long enough, it will just become law, and therefore he didn't support it?
Only takes like another week. I think that's how he hopes to what? Anesthetize himself from this. Somehow he's going to sanitize himself from this. I think that's his cowardly.
Even though we know he supports, he's got to support this, right? You know Walker supports this.
Publicly come out and said he supports it.
So you think he would be so cowardly as to not sign it, even after publicly supporting it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this...
You taking action on that?
Sure. Bring a Jabu. I mean, Hamburger A, vetoed. Never going to happen.
No,
even though Charlie Sykes is encouraging.
There's a small chance. But let's get to the Sykes piece. We'll continue this wager talk. But let's get to Charlie.
Charlie Sykes writes, the Wisconsin GOP's lame duck power play was not the death of democracy, but it was bad enough. Petty, vindictive, and self-destructive. It was, as the saying goes, worse than a crime. It was a blunder. And for what? In its arrogant insularity, the Wisconsin GOP became a national symbol of win at all costs. Norms be damned politics. Cut through the overwrought rhetoric. And what did the Republican legislatures actually accomplish? Not really a whole lot. Certainly not enough to justify the political damage they have inflicted upon themselves. They have managed to energize the progressive base. Yes, we can statistically demonstrate the base were energized, expose themselves as sore losers, and undermine crucial democratic norms. And in return, they got extraordinarily little. Let's break it down. Meeting through the night, legislators voted to restrict early voting, an unsuitable response to a massive turnout in the Democratic strongholds of Dane and Milwaukee counties that helped Democrats sweep the statewide ballot on November 6th. But the attack on early voting will likely be struck down by the courts. Indeed, their similar effort in 2016 was ruled unconstitutional. They also blocked the incoming governor, Tony Evers, from withdrawing the state from a lawsuit against Obamacare. But whether Wisconsin is listed on the suit will have no effect at all on the pending litigation, which could threaten the guaranteed coverage of pre-existing conditions. The GOP then proceeded to dig itself a deeper hole by defeating legislation designed to provide some protection for people with pre-existing conditions. Like 2.4 million Wisconsinites fall under that category, Dom.
Mira says she'd lay in front of a bus. Continuing on from Charlie Sykes' piece in The Atlantic. That issue contributed mightily to the party's losses in November, and the legislature's action ensures that health care will remain a liability for the GOP going into 2020. More substantively, the GOP legislators limited the new governor's ability to seek waivers from federal programs and codified Walker's new work requirements for Medicaid recipients. They also sharply limited the role of the newly elected Democratic Attorney General Josh Call by giving the legislature control over lawsuits involving the state and by giving legislators the authority to hire private attorneys to defend state laws. The rest, a grab bag of legislative fixes, bureaucratic rules, and power shifts, some good, some odd, but all mostly small bore. Truth be told, Republicans can mount a case for all this, writes Charlie Sykes. Starting with precedent, 8 years ago, Democrats under former Governor Jim Doe tried to use lame duck session to ratify state employee union contracts that would have greatly limited Walker's flexibility. Republicans remember how the Democrats, desperate for a win, brought back a disgraced state representative named Jeff Wood to vote on the contracts. Wood was actually still serving a jail term for his repeated drunk driving arrest and used his work release privileges to cast a crucial vote. The measure ultimately failed in the state Senate. Republicans can also argue that they were merely affirming the powers of a co-equal branch of government.
May I insert? That was an awfully bad optic once upon a time, but it ain't exactly the same as what the Republicans are pulling now. Please.
Republicans can also argue that they were merely affirming the powers of a co-equal branch of government, something their counterparts in Washington might wish to emulate. Their case, however, is weakened by their lack of concern for excessive executive powers prior to the November 6th election. In any case, they have big majorities in both legislative chambers and will be able to provide a powerful check on the incoming governor after he was sworn in, even without the last-minute legislation. In other words, the lame duck bill might only marginally increase their pre-existing legislative clout. Perhaps aware of the diminished nature of the measures, they have been quick to accuse their critics of hysterical overreaction. Quote, "You are so grossly exaggerating the words of this bill, it makes me sick," complained one of the architects of the legislation, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. Walker, for his part, has expressed support for the last-minute legislation and is widely expected to sign most, if not all, of it.
He's not going to sign it. He's simply going to allow it to become law.
Crudy, but
my prediction.
And I write, this is a longtime friend of Walker, again, writes Charlie Sykes, that would be a huge mistake. Signing the lame duck legislation would be an especially classless way for Walker to leave office. It will tarnish his reputation in ways that I'm not sure he grasps, and frankly, it's just not worth it.
Dom, let me take over. I feel like I read better on Fridays. Walker, obviously, is not one to walk away from a scuffle. His confrontation with the union power made him a national figure, and he's not likely to be intimidated by either protesters or critics. But that fight was about something consequential. This one is only about tribalism and a petty will to power. A strong argument could be made that Walker and people like me who supported him help shape our divisive and toxic political environment. Yeah, you deserve some blame, Charlie.
Come on,
Abso-freaking-lutely. You and all your colleagues on Whitey-Righty Talk Radio, an inferior product. Walker has an opportunity here to redeem his reputation, much as Charlie Sykes is trying to do. Dom, I read on. He should think about how the country is eulogizing President George H.W. Bush. One of the defining moments of Bush's political career was his last, the way he responded to his bitter defeat. The letter he left for his successor, Bill Clinton, was not merely gracious, but an important affirmation of the continuity of America's democratic norms. Your success, he quotes here, your success now is our country's success, he wrote. I'm rooting hard for you. And back to Charlie Sykes' words. Today, that generosity seems wildly discordant. For the moment, the Trumpist style of smash mouth, red versus blue, play to your base politics is ascendant. What's happening now in Wisconsin and similar moves in Michigan will only escalate. The cycle of partisanship, polarization is likely to get worse before it gets better. And the conclusion, Dom, I started with the saying and I'll end with another. An eye for an eye will leave the whole world blind. It has to stop somewhere. I'd love for it to be here in Wisconsin. He ain't vetoing. He'll take the cowardly route. We're the Devil's Advocates. It's Friday, a Festivus Friday. We air grievances here, 844-967-2789. And I can't wait for our good friend James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, because it's damn near Mueller time.
Scott Walker.
Everything you always wanted in a governor and less.
But with the Walker administration, particularly with the governor, everything is about deniability. And that's what they're trying to do. They, oh, he never saw it. That's what they'll say about everything.
They can go suck lemons.
Now go home and get your f***ing shine box.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property, or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009, or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
On marijuana, unfortunately, as a public health issue and a public safety issue, I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's three big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on enemy anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
Ass, grass, or cash, nobody rides for free. Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
And happy Friday. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming on the YouTube and Facebook pages, on Twitter at Devil Radio. And the party line is open. Talk or text. Air your grievances. It's Festivus Friday, 844-967-2789.
Literally, they will shut down Brady Street this weekend for the big Festivus Festival. The airing of the grievances, the feats of strength. You and I should arm wrestle. Maybe on air.
You don't want to lose.
I don't want to lose.
Don't be cheating, big fella.
I don't think I would lose.
You got to sit down.
I've got a substantial weight advantage.
That you do, but your arms are goodly weak.
Oh.
Sorry, girls.
I wouldn't try to arm wrestle Fancy Brian in there. His hands. I feel quite inadequate. We put our hands together, like compared size.
You know, I'm a.
Oh, look at him.
You know, I have competed in arm wrestling tournaments before. Are you aware of that? Oh yeah. Macville tractor pulls. Yep.
I'll take my chances.
Do you wear a hat, and when you turn it around, are you like that truck back there?
He's a little over the top.
Yeah.
Let's get into this piece. Charlie Sykes. I wanted to go back to a Paul Fanlon piece that published in June talking about right-wing talk radio. Not the only topic of the Fanlon piece, but I wanted to concentrate on that aspect.
If I may just interject quickly, of course, we just read a piece by Charlie Sykes in The Atlantic. In that piece, he says this, quote, "A strong argument could be made that Walker and people like me who supported him helped shape our divisive and toxic political environment." Yes, Charlie, I would concur with you. And I just want to say for the record, we did I sent an email out to Charlie to invite him on our show. Haven't heard back yet, but perhaps he can help, redeem his reputation by appearing on the greatest radio show ever.
He could use a bump like that. Louis Friedland is a professor of journalism and mass communication and is the principal investigator of what Paul Fanlin describes as a project. Sponsored through the UW 2020 program, this project studies the media here in the state of Wisconsin. And Friedland said that they wondered what role the media is playing in this change. Let me read a little bit here. This quote actually coming, Kathy Kramer. We had more than anecdotal evidence that people had stopped talking to each other, he said, citing the work of Kathy Kramer, the UW-Madison political science professor, who notably described outstate discord in her book, The Politics of Resentment. Kramer is also one of 7 faculty members on this project's team. Friedland said that they wondered what role media is playing in this change, adding that media has become a very complex, multi-headed phenomena. And a quote, if you want to know what role media was playing, you have to explore its many layers. Now, moving down, skipping over, Cap Time, State Journal, all that stuff. In particular, talk radio has been influentially said, quoting Friedland, adding, you can say there is something in the range of 6+ hours a day of Whitey-Righty, my characterization, right-wing talk radio in every major market in the state, usually on the most powerful AM stations in those markets. Moving on. Through their research, Friedland and others hope to map the paths of how political communication works, citing as an example Charlie Sykes, the guy dropping op-eds at The Atlantic, the former Whitey-Righty radio host who was an outspoken booster of Scott Walker in the Republican governor's early years. Here's a quote, one thing that affects the other. Let's say Charlie Sykes promoted a certain point of view on Act 10, Walker's anti-public labor union initiative. It goes over talk radio. So essentially, Sykes retweets that the unions are filled with thugs. And so many people hear that, adopt that framework, that it gets reinforced for them. When that ripples through social media, it eventually gets picked up by the local media as rumblings in the community and then becomes a news story, he added. I've just given you a simple sketch of one chain of one message, and so really, you do have what in formal academic terms we would call a complex system in which the whole is much greater than the sums of the part. But here's the stunning number as far as I'm concerned. Friedland offered staggering measures of conservative talk radio. 81 radio stations in the state carry 235 hours of conservative talk daily. And among them, Sean Hannity, Fox News, and the inferior products down the dial here in Milwaukee, Dom.
81 stations, 235 hours a day. And now Charlie's writing for The Atlantic. He feels really bad, I'm sure.
He did 3.5 hours per day every day. It's gone now. Good riddance, I say. Come back with us. Devil's Advocate's greatest radio show ever in the state of Wisconsin, or so we claim.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, everybody. Did you know that Scott Walker's no longer going to be the governor? There's no joke there. I'm just really, really happy.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The Devil's Advocates, where there's always time for Scott Walker bashing.
Welcome to our good buddy, Congressman Mark Pocan. Mark, in some small part, this little radio product, the entire rationale for buying a radio station was opposition to Scott Walker. One person's telling me, be humble, Crudy. Take a day and just be humble. And another person's telling me, no, dance on Scott Walker's grave. So, Congressman, I've always admired your sage advice. Sir, what should I do? How should I react to this?
We should waltz, we should polka, and we should two-step. We should be dancing on this right now. To your credit, and I do want to give you guys credit. In Milwaukee, we have seen a shift, especially the suburban areas, from when we had just conservative radio to having you guys there. We have seen a shift in that area, and that's important because I think when people hear ideas, we do better. And I want to thank you for being there and doing what you do.
Hashtag Walker bashing.
Bye, Felicia.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Governor-elect Tony Evers is asking citizens to contact Scott Walker's office to tell the governor not to sign the legislation that would limit the powers of Evers and incoming Attorney General Josh Kaul. Summerfest announced another headliner. Bon Iver will play at the fest on June 29th. Lord Huron and Julian Baker will open the show. And the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts in Milwaukee has announced plans to build a sprawling new campus that would include a great lawn for community events and a 5-story projection wall that could be seen from the street. Outside tonight, mostly clear skies, low of 15 in Milwaukee, 11 degrees in Madison. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz on The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a Festivus Friday, a Mueller time Friday, but not yet. Not going there quite yet. James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, in the 3 o'clock Central Time hour, about 3:30. Jim's coming in studio. Good friend. Always love seeing James Santelle on a Friday because it means it's Mueller time. Dom, talking about this piece. First and foremost, Charlie Sykes trying to redeem his soul. He is one of the guys that helped make Wisconsin as polarized as it is. And he propped up Scott Walker. And, I've been looking at pieces. This is my industry. I watch this pretty close. And it's sad to me, Dom. I've heard post-election, well, here's the good news. Charlie Sykes is gone, so, they don't have the power in right-wing talk radio anymore. Because Sykes retired or moved on.
No, really? There's no other...
So, between the Dan O'Donnells and the Vicky McKennas and the Mark Belling...
What do they say about the chopping off the head of the hydrant?
The Hydra.
Hydrant.
I just want
perhaps
to
more appropriate.
Throw out this Friedland quote one more time, this stat. Friedland offered staggering measures of conservative talk radio. 81 stations in the state every day carrying 235 hours of conservative talk daily. That's not a week, a month. That's every day. So if you think because Charlie Sykes is gone, that right-wing talk radio has been neutered, that's not really the case. There's lots and lots of right-wing talk radio. So they're getting the word out. And that's why Scott Walker so often, and why these righties, they don't give a damn what the newspaper is telling people. They've got their whole version of the truth, right? Their version, their alternative facts. Dan O'Donnell today. I like Dan as a human-ish. I've listened to a show a little bit today. Well, this is exactly what the Democrats would have done.
No, not at all exactly.
A power grab. No, they would have. They did in 2010. And I'm not going to take your calls, and I'm not looking for your feedback. That's part of the trick over on Right Wing Talk Radio. You know, if it's an echo chamber, if you agree with me, come on. Tell me how great I am. I mean, we all like callers like that. But if you disagree with me, well, you don't really need to make it to the top of the call list. And, you know, you might make it through once, but then you get a reputation. We can mark people. We know who you are. I'm sure they've got similar software at the inferior Whitey talk radio stations. But here's a point that I don't know if anyone's quite getting. And I can reinforce what it is I'm talking about with actual statistics. It's not just that Charlie Sykes said it on the radio. That's just where it starts. That's only one event, right? What if I always try to point out to you, Dom? We get our guests, good or bad, PolitiFacted more than any other radio product in the state of Wisconsin. Not even close. We've been on the air like 7 years. Started noticing our guests in like 2013. People started paying attention. At least PolitiFact. Since that time, I think we've had 27 guests PolitiFacted.
Really?
27 times people have been PolitiFacted. You think they're tuning in to hear Charlie throw softballs for Scott Walker? No. I mean, there's nothing that really happens. Those are not interviews. Those are fluff pieces. And I mean, you know, like the porn business, the fluff pieces. That's what they're doing on Right Wing Talk Radio when they bring Scott Walker on, day before the election, whatever the case may be. I mean, he's a constant. He is a fixture.
Oh, especially this year when knowing his job was on the line. Where was Walker those last several days? All over Right Wing Talk Radio.
But what is the secondary part? Even what we do, Dom, when people ask us, because I'm not going to pay, it is damn expensive to find out your ratings. Yeah, we're 2 years in the marketplace. Damn near 2 years. I'm not paying an outfit almost $100,000 a year to tell me my ratings aren't as good as I'd like them to be. But that presumes that the only way you can hear us is on the radio, and the only impact that we have is on the radio, and clearly that's not the case. Right now, Facebook live stream. Oh, kind of sunny. Let me move the curtains.
Facebook live stream. YouTube, if you're so
damn it.
inclined.
Now the YouTube's a little sunny.
It'll pass.
But here's the point. We can be heard as podcast, as radio, as live stream on the Facebook, on the YouTube, and then we start putting up our little aggregation. We share with each other all day long. Dom, since the elections have happened here in the state of Wisconsin, our engagement levels, waiting for the little stat to flip here for me, up 35%. Since after the elections, obviously some bad governance going on, people taking note of that fact. Nothing like, making us pay full attention to what's going on for the holidays. But here's the greater point. The social media reach, and if you got a little radio show, suddenly, you become a news aggregator. And when you put your opinions online, people share them, and they go much farther, not because we're super cool, although that's true, but because we got a radio show. So we become our own echo chamber. Now, I would like to think we're doing our damnedest to tell the truth around here. But you know what? The social media becomes a reinforcing echo chamber. It is about a lot more. The reach, we've got hundreds of thousands of engagements with this show in the last 28 days. Post-election, approaching 250,000 engagements. That's people reaching out to us, giving us comment, watching the video, telling us, here's what I think. I would like to think that gives us unique insights. And there's 81 right-wing talk radio stations doing something similar. Now, they don't have the impact we do. And you can think, oh, little lefty, radio station. What impact do you have? Yeah, but we're the only frickin' one.
Right.
I mean, they've divided the marketplace by 81 stations. And certainly Milwaukee is a big marketplace. And I wish I had those big ratings that TMJ does during baseball season when the Brewers are doing well. I can't prove that. But what I can tell you is more than the Milwaukee market, people are listening to us around the state, around the country, around the nation. Guys calling in from London the other day, mostly ex-Badgers. But it's not a single thing. Being on the radio is not a singular media outlet. It is an amplifying platform for all the social mediums, all the different ways that people can find us and hear us. And same thing on the right. Only multiply Crudy and Dom 81 times.
That's a lot. Well, Crudy, I think if you throw in the other page Facebooks and perhaps the Twitter, if you look at some of the other stuff, I don't even know what the stats on the websites are. We're probably closer to 350 plus engagement, 350,000 engagements a month. No. If I could get $1 for every one of those engagements, I'd be a rich man.
Well, not really. You'd be, solidly upper middle class.
350,000 a month? All right, I'll give you half of that.
Yeah, you'd share. There is a lot of important stuff happening in the state of Wisconsin. And this is the platform. And the righties, they've got lots and lots of platforms. I've been trying to point out Vicki McKenna's been lying. It's been saying there was massive absentee voter fraud. Been propagating that in two media.
North Carolina?
No, in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin.
In Milwaukee. Where the brown people live, Dom. And she's got a platform on WISN in Milwaukee, WIBA in Madison, and like 5 or 6 other media markets around the state that somebody created for her. And I've always thought it was Eric O'Keefe, because she also became the platform to help get out in front of the John Doe 2 prosecutions of Scott Walker. And let's not forget, it wasn't just Scott Walker. He was coordinating with an outside group, Wisconsin Club for Growth, to the tune of like $24 million. And he was guilty as sin, all indications are. And Eric O'Keefe, and I can't prove this, but I know it's true, Eric O'Keefe went out and created a right-wing talk radio network specifically for Vicki McKenna, and he broke the gag orders of the courts. I mean, you didn't see John Chisholm out there blabbing. You didn't see the prosecutor, special counsel Francis Schmidt, out there blabbing. But you did see Eric O'Keefe out there blabbing, and you got one side of the story, and he could talk in every media market around the state just by going down to friendly Vicki McKenna. All he had to do was buy her a platform all around the state.
Pretty cheap when you're talking hundreds of millions. What? $24 million would have been a triple-double, so what? Do the math.
$120 million in potential civil forfeiture.
You can invest a lot to save that.
And Scott Walker, well, we all know he got out of jail free. Someone paid the freight on a very expensive legal defense. Scott Walker's never disclosed publicly.
Yeah, who funded the legal defense of Scott Walker?
Well, I don't know this for fact either, Don, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Diane Hendricks.
What?
And here's why.
The divide and conquer league? What can we do to get rid of these unions on Scott Walker? Oh, it's not to divide and conquer.
Yeah, the widow Hendricks.
We're going to deal with collective bargaining for all public employee unions. Right. Because you divide and conquer.
Fancy Brian, you are the best.
Dominic, got a little piece at the Post, and I'm going to pull it all together before this whole show's done.
I know you got a lot of.
I got a lot of moving parts
right
because
now.
There's a lot of corruption, and there are platforms of propaganda helping them spread this corruption. And in part, it was to cover the illegal activity of Scott Walker, the campaign coordinating he was doing with Wisconsin Club for Growth. That's the Eric O'Keefe outfit. Eric O'Keefe went out there and got himself a free speech platform that probably cost him a lot of money, but, well worth it relative to the civil forfeiture expenditures of $120 million or more. David Rifkin, very expensive lawyer. We don't know who paid for him, but here's a piece. We're going to throw this little tidbit out there. Scott Pruitt, the EPA guy, billionaire GOP donor gave Scott Pruitt $50,000 for legal expenses. This one at the Washington Post. But I bet we can bring it home to Wisconsin, Dom. Scott Pruitt, who resigned this summer as administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Let's not forget, Pruitt signed off on the Foxconn. Pruitt made special disposition so Foxconn could go through here in the state of Wisconsin. Back to reading. Amid a flurry of ethics inquiries, received $50,000 from his legal defense fund from a Wisconsin billionaire, according to the financial disclosure released Thursday. The contribution came this year from the widow Hendricks, Diane Hendricks, a businesswoman and major Republican donor, though it was not clear precisely when she donated to the Scott Pruitt Legal Expenses Trust. It also did not specify whether he had spent the money or how. In a financial disclosure form, which Pruitt was required to file upon leaving the agency, EPA officials made clear that he had not sought ethics advice before accepting the donation to offset his legal expenses. The disclosure covers this calendar year, though Pruitt's resignation in early July. Dom, in what form did the $50,000 come?
Crudy, I saw it and noted it was reported to have been delivered in cash. Cash is king. Now, Crudy,
have you ever seen 50 G's in cash?
It's got to be heavy. No, I haven't. But there's only 2 times I use cash. One time when I go up the street here on Brady Street to my favorite corner tavern, the Roman Coin.
The Roman Coin!
The Roman Coin only takes cash. So I got to have cash in my pocket. Well, I'm going to go
They got a cash machine up there as well.
They do. That's nice. And when I'm buying some weed, that's the only time I use cash.
So when you're doing illicit activity, because that's still forbidden here in the state under both federal and state law, then it's a cash-only transaction because it says right on the money for any debt, legal, private, legal tender, right? It says something to that effect. I paraphrase. Cash. Diane Hendricks gave EPA's Scott Pruitt $50,000 cash. Now, Diane Hendricks is giving Scott Walker over $5 million. I think we've solved the mystery of where the money came from for the legal defense fund for Scott Walker. It was Diane Hendricks. Let's stop pretending like we don't know who gave the money. Allegedly. I'm alleging it. Allegedly.
Hey, Diane Hendricks, did you give cash money to Scott Walker for his legal defense fund? Call us, 844-967-2789.
Now, according to the Washington Post, the widow Hendricks did not return a call seeking comment Thursday.
Shocking. She must be very busy counting all that cash. I mean, $50,000, then you got to count it out, then you got to wrap it up, you can put it in a duffel bag or a backpack.
Now,
an attaché case. How do you deliver it, you know?
How guilty must you be?
Are you sure it was 50? It was 100. Hey, some fell off the truck.
When you got a $50,000 retainer, I mean, that's just getting started money, right? We don't know that it all went to the attorney on one fell swoop, but the guy says, yeah, I need some cash. And when you just, not even write a check, don't even apparently make any sort of record of it, almost like you don't want anyone to know that you gave that gift. Because what's the return for her? There's not even a tax write-off. The way Scott Walker coordinated with third-party groups, at least he had the common courtesy of offering a tax shield for all his grandiose donors.
So essentially, taxpayer-subsidized electioneering.
Taxpayer-subsidized dark money, and to the benefit of the donor, because when the widow Hendricks would give to a third-party group, or any of his donors, well, that was tax-deductible to them. They would literally have the right to claim it on their taxes because they gave it to a charity.
501c3.
So sweet, that dark money. So, anyways, Charlie Sykes, you were part of it. You propped up Scott Walker. Alec McGinnis wrote a piece before Scott Walker ran for president. The unelectable whiteness of Scott Walker, and said effectively the only thing this man has going for him is a right-wing talk radio network in the state of Wisconsin. Alec McGinnis, I believe his name, very prescient in that piece, The New Republic. We are the Devil's Advocates. It's Friday. It's Festivus Friday. It's Mueller time. James Santelle coming in studio soon. You on the phones next, perhaps. 844-967-2789.
Say I'd be there waiting for.
The biggest fear that I and I think a lot of our supporters have is the outside money.
Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
Are you concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only ordering classic corner tavern.
I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver to Mom. I had no idea how hard it would be and what I would need to know. Things I never thought of, like how to improve her mood and ways for me to stay positive. Luckily, I found the Caregiving Resource Center from AARP. It had articles about the basics, but also information about the hurdles I was facing.
Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving. Articles, tips, and tools to help you both care for your loved one and care for yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Ignacio, what do you got for us today?
Hey, I quit paying attention for like maybe one day, and all hell breaks loose. That goes to show me I got to pay attention every single day to your radio program, or else who knows what'll happen.
If you don't listen to the Devil's Advocates 3 hours every day, Nacho, you're missing a lot.
You got that right. I just learned that today. I turned it on and I'm listening, and you really just rocked my world today. I was just totally blown away.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Totally blown away.
The Devil's Advocates. Sausage making never looks so good.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Real Resistance Radio. It's a Friday. We are happy you can join us at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, looking forward to Mueller time in the 3 o'clock hour. About 3:30, James Santelle, fine former U.S. attorney, joins us in studio. But Dom, back to the corrupted outgoing governor of the state of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. I mean, it's pretty bad when Charlie Sykes feels like he has the moral upper hand on you. Because Charlie Sykes, there's a special place in hell for you as well. I'm just theorizing.
But you can still come on the radio show with us anytime, Charlie.
Oh, no. 844-967-2789. All callers welcome. But Scott Walker broke campaign finance laws. And then the Wisconsin Supreme Court, after getting a little cover from his buddy, J.B. Van Hollen, it was a multi-jurisdictional investigation.
The Wisconsin Attorney General at the time.
Yeah, dragged his feet for 6 months. Didn't say no merit, said, I'm also conflicted. And then they had to bring on a special counsel. And by then, well, Walker's Legal Defense Fund, I think probably financed by Diane Hendricks, well, they had gotten well out in front of this. And they had built a media network so they could selectively leak what information they wanted to and convince the people of Wisconsin that, oh no, this was dastardly. The prosecution of crimes, that's a bad thing.
Pre-dawn paramilitary raids.
Of course, none of those things. Think about the Cindy Archer suits. Both the first and the amended second ones.
Why did they have to amend it?
Because they're works of fiction. They Mirandized these people. They came in very respectfully. Hell, they let her smoke a cigarette. Do you think Manafort got that courtesy?
Yeah, when they blindfold him right before they shoot him.
But Scott Walker coordinated with third-party groups. And then the Wisconsin Supreme Court, the conservative bloc at least, may have done some of the very same illegal activities coordinated with the very same people and organizations, including Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce and WRA, and they're the ones that wrote the recusal rules.
How can that be?
So the Supreme Court justices did not have to recuse themselves when WMC and WRA and Wisconsin Club for Growth, well, when they were accused of giving what would have been illegal campaign finance donations, which would have subjected all parties to what? Up to 6 times, as I understand it, the actual coordinated dollar figures. So we're talking about real money at this point. Millions multiplied by 6. And then, of course, they said, burn the evidence, fire the special prosecutor. We'll never talk of this again, and we're going to condone this activity. And in her dissent, Abrahamson said, what about the evidence that he also coordinated with express advocates? That's still a bright legal line. And, oh, yeah, that's when they said fire the special prosecutor and burn the evidence. And now, Dom, we hear and see reports Donald Trump did the same freaking thing. And unlike the state of Wisconsin, where we have a uniquely corrupted campaign finance system, thank you, Scott Walker, it's still a crime everywhere else.
From Crudy's favorite source, the Raw Story.
Raw Story.
On top of suspicions that President Donald Trump's campaign nefariously coordinated with the Russian government as part of the 2016 campaign, and in addition to sworn testimony by Michael Cohen that Trump directed him to engage in criminal campaign finance violations.
That was paying off porn stars.
The Trump campaign now stands accused of another form of illegal campaigning, coordinating with the National Rifle Association.
That's free speech, man.
The allegations come from Mother Jones and in a joint investigation with the Trace. According to the report, Trump and the NRA both targeted ads to the same area in Virginia during the same time slot and to the same demographic with ads that were complementary. This wasn't merely a coincidence either. The report found that both the NRA and the Trump Organization directed the ad buy through two nominally separated organizations that, in fact, are hard to distinguish.
Dom, in the case of Scott Walker, was the very same human being, R.J. Johnson. He didn't even try to distinguish between them.
Buying for Walker and buying for Wisconsin Club for Growth.
Yeah.
Continuing, the ad buys from both the Trump campaign and the NRA were even authorized by the same person, Crudy, according to the report, John Farrell, the CFO of National Media. It is a violation of campaign finance laws for outside groups to coordinate their election spending with a candidate, at least federally. So these findings raise serious questions about the campaigns and the NRA's legal exposure. And since other evidence makes clear that the Trump campaign was hardly ethically rigorous when it came to its regard for norms, laws, and national security, the allegation isn't particularly hard to believe, Crudy.
You know, in the whole scheme of crimes committed by Donald Trump, this might go down as one of the small ones, but it will probably be the end of the NRA as an organization as we know it. And they may have been, money laundering on behalf of the Russians to the benefit of Donald Trump. I almost said Scott Walker because, of course...
Scott Walker got like $4.5 million in money from the NRA.
Including in the most recent elective cycle. Do you see parallels? Scott Walker, just a black-haired version of the bronze Cheeto god, Donald Trump. I mean, just because he's a preacher's kid doesn't mean that he had any moral dilemmas either. He was breaking campaign finance laws, the corrupted campaign finance laws here in the state of Wisconsin. Let's not forget, they also threw out the GAB. That wasn't a lame duck, but it was a special session. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789. It's Friday. Air your grievances. Yeah.
The NRA does care.
Maybe we could launder the money.
It's really an honor to work with the NRA, not only in my state, but across the country.
Where's the money, man? Where's my money?
Governor Scott Walker.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Giuliani explains. Tillerson feud. I'm Mike Moss. White House lawyer Rudy Giuliani is reaching out to say the special counsel Robert Mueller thinks former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort lied to him about what the president knew of a Trump Tower meeting with Russians claiming to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. More from correspondent Evan Perez.
One of the things he said was Paul Manafort is being accused by the special counsel of lying about his interactions with the president. He's lying about President Trump. Now, we don't know exactly what the nature of the lies are. We certainly do not know, and Rudy Giuliani, by the way, does not know what's going to end up in this court filing that we're waiting for at this moment.
While reports suggest that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly and the president aren't even on speaking terms any longer, and Kelly is on the way out, it appears Kelly was called by Mueller to answer questions about obstruction of justice. President's feuding with his former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Tillerson said the president sometimes asked him to do things he would have to tell the president were either illegal or violated treaties. In response, the president says Tillerson was lazy and dumb, and he couldn't get rid of him soon enough. Stocks are causing investors anguish this week, dropping more than 4%. Correspondent Allison Cossack says the White House is taking notice.
Earlier today, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow, he sounded kind of an optimistic note on CNBC about talks with China. And then you had trade advisor Peter Navarro on CNN warning of higher tariffs if issues aren't resolved. That's what's helping to juice the volatility in the markets that we are seeing right now.
Traders say they are getting mixed messages from the White House on China, and they don't know what to believe. The market is down across the board today. The Dow is off 559 points. S&P down 62. NASDAQ 219 to the downside. I'm Mike Moore.
Ever worry that the anonymous millionaires are setting the agenda for our community with little or no accountability? I do. That's why I joined Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. My fellow members and I want to build a powerful and lasting progressive movement. Together, we can help determine the agenda in our own communities. Then we work with professional organizers and a team of leading strategists to make that agenda happen. We're working on health care, economic justice, child poverty, electing progressive candidates, and more. And our Radio Active campaign supports this station and the Resistance Radio Network. So, won't you come help us build a movement?
Become a member of the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. Go to citizenactionwi.org.
Platform are available in all 50 states.
Odds are, if you're an adult, you haven't yet gotten a flu shot this season. We get more from correspondent John Stolnis.
A new survey finds only 43% of Americans 18 or older have gotten their flu shot. The poll found that just 14% of people who are unvaccinated say they will soon get one. However, even if they do, that still leaves more than a third of the population who do not plan to get an injection to guard against influenza. So far, this flu season has been a mild one, with 38 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico experiencing minimal flu activity. Another 10 states, as well as New York City, are experiencing low to moderate activity. Only 2 states, Georgia and Louisiana, experienced high activity on the week ending December 1st. I'm John Stolnis.
An elementary school principal in Omaha, Nebraska is on administrative leave after asking teachers not to celebrate Christmas in classrooms. She barred teachers from using any images of Santas, Christmas trees.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill, bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council. When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill, bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, exclusively on Real Resistance Radio. Call in live at 844-967-2789 and give your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on local and national topics. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon. It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's the Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes on Real Resistance Radio. Always streaming live on realresistanceradio.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Now that lame duck Republicans have passed legislation to curb the powers of Tony Evers and Josh Kaul and limit early voting, that legislation is now on Scott Walker's desk awaiting his signature. Walker can sign the legislation as it is, or he can veto it, or he could reshape it using his line item veto powers. Two rival companies are planning to build commuter rail corridors in Milwaukee and surrounding suburbs, packed with high-density housing, retail, and offices. The Bucks take on the NBA champion Golden State Warriors tonight at the Forum, and the Packers play the Falcons on Sunday at Lambeau Field. Outside tonight, mostly clear skies, low of 15 in Milwaukee, 11 degrees in Madison. Tomorrow, sunshine, highs in the upper 20s. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom will be welcoming back a fine guest, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. He's in the hizzy, but he's waiting because it is after 4 o'clock Eastern time. The federal courts close at 5. Where are the Cohen and the Manafort sentencing memos, and how badly will they be redacted? We'll bring in Jim Santelle very soon. Hopefully this all drops within a matter of minutes, Dom.
Hopefully.
That'd be swell. In the meantime, Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post. Donald Trump, I think he noted the timelines, knew that something was up. It was Mueller time again.
What, you mean Trump was tweeting his ass off this morning?
Panic tweeting from the gold-plated toilet seat.
Oh, my God. Come on, man. I almost long for the days of, there's an ongoing investigation, and I can't comment on that right now.
Well, December 7th, 2018, Pearl Harbor Day, where and how else would you start your day, 5:18 a.m., than tweeting at the special counsel?
Great observation.
That it's Pearl Harbor Day?
Oh, yeah, that I haven't seen.
A day that will go down in infamy.
His entire Twitter feed and see what he said. I would imagine he said something.
Well, I suspect he wasn't, worrying about the Pearl Harbor before 5:18 a.m., but I haven't checked for sure. Once you do that, I'll jump in the Rubin piece before 9 a.m. I would say substantially before. President Trump unleashed a series of furious tweets. Robert Mueller and Leakin Lion James Comey are best friends. Just one of the many Mueller conflicts of interest. And by the way, is that how you spell by the way? By the way, wasn't the woman in charge of prosecuting Jerome Corsi, who I do not know, in charge of legal at the corrupt Clinton Foundation, a total witch hunt, ... New tweet. 10 minutes later. Will Robert Mueller's big-time conflicts of interest be listed at the top of Republicans' only report? Will Andrew Weissman's horrible and vicious prosecutorial past be listed in the report? He wrongly destroyed people's lives, took down great companies only to be, and like 7 dots, ... And then 5 dots, ... Overturned 9-0 in the U.S. Supreme Court. Doing same thing to people now. Will all of these substantial and many contributions made by the 17 angry Democrats to the campaign of crooked Hillary be listed in top of report? Capital R for report. I guess that means the Mueller report. Will the people that worked for Clinton, 4 dots this time, another tweet, foundation be listed at the top of report? Will the scathing document written about lying James Comey by the man in charge of the case, Rod Rosenstein, who also signed the FISA warrant, be a big part of report? Well, the report this time isn't Rod, therefore totally conflicted. Will
got him now, Columbo.
Will all of 4 dots new tweet, final one I'm going to read to you, the lying and leaking by the people doing the report, and all. What leaking has there been on the report? I wish there was some leaking from Mueller's team. I want to see some leaks. Leak, please. And also Bruce Orr and his lovely wife Molly, Comey, Brennan Clapper, and all of the many fired people of the FBI be listed in the report. Will the corruption within the DNC and Clinton campaign be exposed? And so much more! Exclamation point.
Just one more thing.
Where is the collusion?
I mean, this 5-tweet tirade took about an hour for him to thumb out on the toilet, Dom.
Yep, started.
He's going to get hemorrhoids like
started that. Started his tweets at 5:18. The last one posted at 6:15. And for the record, Crudy, I did peruse the first reference I see to Pearl Harbor, 8:46.
Well, that's secondary in importance behind his attacks on the witch hunt and conflicted lying Comey and Mueller. Comey also giving testimony before a closed Republican-run House committee today. The transcript's not going to be available till over the weekend.
But they will be available.
That is our understanding.
That was part of the deal.
James Santelle is going to give us all a reading assignment, I suspect.
Back to the Jennifer Rubin piece, regarding Trump's tweets. Yes, another Friday for special counsel Robert Mueller to file documents with the federal court. Another scene in the slow strip tease that uncloaks the magnitude of President Trump and his associates' wrongdoing. It's interesting that his defense now has boiled down to a grotesque case of whataboutism. While Trump's unraveling accelerates, he will replace departing ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, with Heather Nauert, a veteran Fox News personality whose entire experience in government consists of 1 year as a press spokeswoman.
But she has the most important quality, Dom. She's blonde and pretty.
Oh,
very pretty.
Oh, yeah, you like? Curdy's attracted. Finally, shove aside of Chief of Staff John Kelly, who failed spectacularly in focusing the president and preserving his own integrity, ergo misrepresenting facts in the Rob Porter case, making false accusations against an African-American congresswoman, enabling Trump's cruel family separation policy, continuing, appoint William Barr to Attorney General despite, or because of, public comments disparaging the Russia investigation, dig himself deeper into a deeper hole on Saudi Arabia with members of his own party convinced Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was behind the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
You still got Ron Johnson on that issue, Trump.
And attempt to maintain the fiction that the China negotiations are going swimmingly. We never even hardly touched on that issue. The man said, got this great deal with China, and the markets responded. And then they've come to find out there wasn't any deal with China, and the markets responded. You got to wonder if he was selling short.
Yeah, the markets took another dump today. The NASDAQ off over 200. I think the Dow off about 600.
He cannot even divert attention to the economy after a roller coaster ride in the markets this week and a blah jobs report. U.S. economy added 155,000 jobs in November, falling short of expectations for more robust growth, and the unemployment rate stayed at a 49-year low of 3.7%. Jennifer Rubin continues. At least we have finally discovered evidence of blatant election fraud. Then again, the fraud was allegedly perpetrated by Republicans in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District.
I haven't heard Trump mention much about that.
And we did mention judicial confirmations. And did we mention, I apologize, judicial confirmations have ground to a halt thanks to Senator Jeff Flake, a Republican from Arizona, his refusal to confirm judges unless he gets a floor vote on the Senate Judiciary Committee's measure passed 14-7 in committee to protect Mueller. Well, at least there is a bipartisan agreement, an agreement between the Senate and Trump on historic criminal justice reform. Then again, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has stood athwart reform that could substantially benefit African Americans, shouting no! To recap, Crudy, Trump has no discernible response to the tightly woven story of illegality from Mueller to rant like a lunatic while he's losing his grip on his party, at least the Senate, and heads into 2019 without the protection of the GOP House majority and with the potential for an economic slowdown. Virtually all of these calamities result from the president's own conduct and ineptitude. Before Democrats start measuring the drapes for the Oval Office for 2021, they should, nevertheless, keep two things in mind. First, absent divine intervention, Republicans in the Senate will not remove Trump, meaning this will go on for another 2 years. I will challenge that, Curdy, but I digress. Second, if Democrats in 2018 are starting the circular firing squad, actually mostly the far-left forces behind Senator Bernie Sanders, attacking one of their best candidates, Rep. Beto O'Rourke, for being insufficiently socialist, then there is every possibility they can manage to lose in 2020. In sum, things are getting more tumultuous by the day, but that's no guarantee we'll be freed from Trump anytime soon. I would again throw out there, Curdy, I don't think Trump makes it. I don't think it's going to be divine intervention. I think it's going to be the facts falling from the sky, and Trump will not finish this term.
I'm just looking for indictments. I want tangible evidence. I want trials. I want goose stepping. They say orange is the new sexy.
844-967-2789. Let's get some callers in. Well, we have a moment. Mark from the Sack, you are up. Hey, Mark, happy Friday. What do you got for us?
Hey, Muppet Sack Mark, how are you, buddy?
Hey there. Doing pretty good, but I think you actually mean frog marching rather than goose stepping.
Oh.
For a guy's going out the door.
Maybe it's the fascism. Maybe I got confused,
there's
Mark.
so much of that going around.
But that I find some bemusement in all the, our trolls still bringing up the John Doe investigation on the site, talking about how it was such a big waste of money. And you guys were talking about it today. It was illegal right up to the point that they actually changed the law to make it legal for these guys, for Walker to do
and
it.
fired the referees and changed how people funnel dark money to the candidates in the state of Wisconsin. Dom says that maybe you can do something similar in Florida, but to my understanding, we have a uniquely corrupted campaign finance system, mostly because Scott Walker broke the laws and they had to change the laws to codify his illegal behavior, his illegal coordination, Mark.
And the John Doe one was completely, legitimate because they were breaking law. I mean, they had the secret server there in the governor's office, the campaign team sending letters to the governor's office, sending communications to the governor's office.
Those were the small crimes, Mark.
Yeah.
What about the embezzlement from a veterans fund that Scott Walker had established by a guy that Scott Walker had appointed who was using the money to the benefit of Scott Walker's future gubernatorial campaign? I mean, it wasn't simply someone making comments on the Journal Sentinel, although that was also charged and convicted.
Yeah, wasn't that the pedophile guy that was embezzling the money, or is that another one?
I prefer to think of him as the secret router guy. Yeah, he was also, I think he and his boyfriend charged with enticing juveniles for, some sort of sexual stuff.
And Mark, let's not forget, of course, there was also a coordination, according to the filings, with express advocacy groups, I believe an arm of the Republican Governors Association. You're not supposed to do that, and the laws that they changed didn't impact that particular part of it.
Yeah, they made those more liberal as well.
Made it easier, so...
Basically, you can do whatever you want in the state of Wisconsin. You can fund it in any dark fashion you want to. I mean, bribery is legal in the state of Wisconsin. Just ask Scott Walker.
And you could buy a judge. I mean, all those judges received money from the very groups that were accused of funneling the money to Scott Walker.
Well, the ones that actually won election were bought. The ones that were appointed by Scott Walker, they will probably lose in the next elective cycles, I predict.
Well, hopefully this stench will stick to them as well.
If people remember, Mark, I'm not convinced, man. I mean, I'd like to think. I mean, the only reason I remember, because Crudy says it, goes on a rant about it once every couple of months since it's been some time. But Crudy's got a great memory on these things. But I'm hopeful that others will remember, that others will even know what the governor and the Republicans did here in the state of Wisconsin. And they did it all just to cover his ass. Those changes were not needed had Governor Walker not engaged in that behavior blatantly.
But he did it for the benefit of state legislators. Let's not forget, they were also under recall in the state of Wisconsin, including Scotty Fitzgerald. And Prosser and Roggensack. Now, Prosser had his own coordination issues. You could read it in the John Doe 2, the final ruling. It reads like a confession. Well, of course we broke the law. I did it when I was the caucus leader. You know, Prosser set up Scott Jensen and others, taught them everything he knew about how to corrupt the law, and then got to rule on not only Scott Walker's corruption, but his own. Come back with us, Devil's Advocates, and our friend Will Durst, a fine commentary. Your calls, more Devils, 844-967-2789.
Find some collusion.
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last. Just one more thing.
He called me fat and said I was going to die on the toilet.
You are a rude, terrible person.
On marijuana, unfortunately, as a public health issue and a public safety issue, I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's three big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on it anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
The Devil's Advocates, where there's always time for Scott Walker bashing.
Welcome to our good buddy, Congressman Mark Pocan. Mark, in some small part, this little radio product, the entire rationale for buying a radio station was opposition to Scott Walker. One person's telling me, be humble, Crudy. Take a day and just be humble. And another person's telling me, no, dance on Scott Walker's grave. So, Congressman, I've always admired your sage advice. Sir, what should I do? How should I react to this?
We should waltz, we should polka, and we should two-step. We should be dancing on this right now. To your credit, and I do want to give you guys credit. In Milwaukee, we have seen a shift, especially the suburban areas, from when we had just conservative radio to having you guys there. We have seen a shift in that area, and that's important because I think when people hear ideas, we do better. And I want to thank you for being there and doing what you do.
Hashtag Walker bashing.
Bye, Felicia.
Wreaking havoc on America, just like they wreaked havoc on Wisconsin. Tom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Real Resistance Radio. It's Friday. We air grievances. You can join us on the phones at 844-967-2789. Let's go to Joe from Madison. Hey, Joe. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates. What do you got for us today?
Oh, it's good to talk to you guys again.
Thank you.
You're just doing a fabulous job, great information. I have some speculation. Rather than a grievance, I'd like to speculate, and I don't know if you're...
Lay your conspiracy on us, sister.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I heard that apparently part of the deal with Mr. Mueller is that he is able to choose how many charges that he lays down, and that the speculation is that he has been holding back on some state charges for various people so that he still has something in his back pocket, should he choose to direct it to a state attorney general, which got me thinking about, the Republicans' absolute desire to make sure that they, cut Mr. Call off at the knees before he even starts his job. And it makes me wonder if you start to look at the gang that's here that could be facing some state charges. I look at Walker, who Dallas Morning News said he was one of 7 different people who received money from a Russian-American named Blavatnik, and Walker got about 1.3. Mitch McConnell got like 1.7 million. So you got Walker, you've got Reince Priebus, former...
well, let's stay on Walker for just a minute. Let's not forget the Russian Maria Butina, who's about, if we believe the reporting, to make a plea deal. Well, she's been accused of being a spy. She's been held in solitary And Walker whispered sweet nothings to her in the mother Russian, first at an NRA convention. You remember them from the last hour. They were illegally coordinating with the Donald Trump campaign. They were also probably, according to prior reporting, money laundering to the tune of $32 million on behalf of the Russians. And Scott Walker, well, he had the very same Russian spy at his campaign launch party in Waukesha. You know, Scott Walker might be getting out right in front of the special counsel.
Yeah, you're speaking to her as they said, in the mother tongue. So you've got Walker, you've got Reince Priebus, former chief of staff for the White House, and, you know, who was right in the middle of it, and he was also the head of the RNC, which has been charged by some as parceling out money from Russian sources. There was that wonderful Washington Post article in which Speaker Ryan, when challenged by Senator McCarthy, Rep. McCarthy, said, yeah, you know, put it in the family. We all know that some stuff is going on in terms of Trump getting money, and I believe it was
Dana Rohrabacher.
Yeah,
yep.
Yes. So you got...
Hold up the tape.
Yes, the tape.
Lordy, there was tapes.
Yeah. So then we can circle around over to Ron Johnson, who spent his 4th of July in Moscow. And we're still not quite sure what he was doing. But and then I was curious because in your last hour you were talking about Mr. Pruitt getting $50,000 from Widow Hendricks. And I thought, isn't it interesting that Mr. Voss is absolutely dead set on no changes at all to the Foxconn deal, which makes me wonder what all is in that Foxconn deal that he is so insistent. I understand that it's in his area, but still, I think, isn't it fascinating that they got a pass from Scott Pruitt, who got money from Widow Hendricks, and Voss is really intent on this. And I'm looking at this roundup of people within the state and thinking, geez, maybe there's a good reason why the Republicans don't want Josh Call to be able to pursue anything, because there may be a lot to pursue. So anyway, I
well, Joe,
speculation.
Thank goodness they've drained that swamp.
Joe, I love the way you think. I think that is a one hell of an analysis.
You know, there could be a John Doe 3, I understand, from the outgoing Attorney General. Apparently, there was some, let's call it evidence gathered on, what was her name, former Senator Nurse Ratchet Leah Buchmer, and apparently some private information caught up as well. But anyways, if you're going to take away all the power of the Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin, he's going to be a former prosecutor with a lot of time on his hands.
Right.
And I'm not saying there will ever be a revisiting of the John Doe 2, as much as that might put the gleam in my eye, probably past the statute of limitations anyways, on those campaign coordinations, those illegalities committed by the current governor. But we don't know what sort of new dastardly stuff he was up to. There have been filed complaints against Scott Walker, Our American Revival. They were effectively breaking campaign finance laws, being a campaign in waiting for him. And God only knows what sort of money and deal he made with the Russian spy Butina for his benefit, because he wanted awfully badly to be the next president of the United States. I think Donald Trump learned a few things from Scott Walker, like campaign coordination. Maybe even colluding with the Russians. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. A fine U.S. Attorney, James Santelle, in studio talking Mueller time.
Russia, if you're listening, Governor Scott Walker is dead.
I'm really proud of what we've been able to do.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Knowing your breasts can save your life. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Komen and the Ad Council.
Well, I'm going to take a nice long rest now. I can stop rolling over in my grave now that Walker is no longer governor. Thank you, Real Resistance Radio.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Do you love public education? Do you want to support your schools? Then you should support the people who make them work. You should support teachers and their unions. Teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions, and when the school bell rings, it is crucial that teachers do not check their rights at the door. The ability to organize and advocate around issues that improve the quality of a teacher's workplace will increase opportunities for students and make schools safer for everyone. Stand with teachers, stand with WEAC Region 7.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
Listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson joins us on the phone regarding our military influence. Aren't we selling arms right now to Saudi Arabia, and aren't they using, munitions that they have purchased from us in their war?
And if we weren't doing that, because they've got plenty of money, they'll buy less precise munitions from other people, and the bloodshed would be worse.
Well, the blood might be on someone else's hands then, Ron.
Well, I'm going to talk to you about that, Ron.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. A group of Milwaukee County Board Supervisors, led by Chairman Theodore Lipscomb, say medical services at the county jail should once again be provided by county employees and not a private company. Armor Correctional Health Services, whose contract ends later this month, has been plagued by lack of staff, poor care, and falsifying records. As of Wednesday, the company is also facing a criminal charge of abuse of prisoners, a felony related to the dehydration death of Terrell Thomas in 2016. Several people have died in recent years while in custody at the county jail and House of Correction. Forecast for tonight, mostly clear skies, low of 15 in Milwaukee, 11 degrees in Madison. Tomorrow, sunshine, highs in the upper 20s. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Charged, never convicted. Dom and Croat are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I've been looking forward to this time all week. Got a fine guest. He's joined us live here in the Brady Street studios. He is former U.S. Attorney, our friend, a fine resource, James Santelle. Jim, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Mike, Dom, it's once again a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Always appreciate it, man. Lots going on. We're waiting for some stuff to come out
We're
tonight.
waiting on Mueller time.
We are. There are about 28 minutes before a deadline on a Michael Cohen submission in the Southern District of New York, and we'll see if that comes out while we're on the air today.
My understanding also, because I'm reading it on the Chiron as we speak, former FBI Director James Comey is going to give public comment after refusing to answer key questions behind closed doors. So we might have a little Comey sound before this fine show's over as well.
He has been on Capitol Hill all day today and now talking to reporters.
Can you not answer questions? Is he under oath? How does that work?
It depends upon what the nature of the questions is. That plainly, if there are some privileges out there, if there are some investigative things that he should not be talking about, he probably would, again, being Jim Comey, even though he's no longer a government employee, certainly no longer under the strict requirements of disclosures and non-disclosures, this is a guy who's still going to follow the law and do the right thing. And so my guess is he has provided as much as he possibly can, knowing that he is aware of pending investigations, things that even long predated his departure and his firing.
Jim, we are awaiting sentencing memos on both Michael Cohen, who apparently has pled guilty and is now cooperating, and Paul Manafort, who pled guilty and was supposed to be cooperating and apparently has broken that. And then contrast that with the earlier Michael Flynn, who now through sentencing, or at least through the sentencing recommendations of the special counsel's office, has been offered no jail time. This seems like sort of the Goldilocks continuum to me. Michael Flynn, perhaps the porridge too cold. And Michael Cohen, I suspect, is going to do some time in Club Fed. But Paul Manafort, what do you think? Like triple life?
I think you've hit it right on the head that we've got an exercise this week, once again, Mike, in civics in America, because we do have, as you just indicated, at the one extreme, you've got the Michael Flynn sentencing memorandum that basically says that this is a man since his time of his plea agreement last December, a year ago, has been doing nothing but cooperating. He has apparently met with Bob Mueller 19 different times. That's 19, not 19
He's
hours.
He's a snitch and a flipper, Jim.
Yeah, right. He has been a cooperating witness for the government over these past 12 months. 19 interviews, and that's not 19 hours. That's 19 interviews. Presumably, each one of those 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. We're probably talking somewhere in excess of 100 hours of time. So Michael Flynn has spent a huge amount of time speaking to Bob Mueller and his staff. Plainly, substantial assistance. Those are a language that it does have some sentencing guideline implications. That's a term of art. But it's also sending the message from Bob Mueller to the world, to our community, that this is a man who has cooperated in a major way. That memorandum that he filed earlier this week, full of information about what we can expect also today.
Jim, let's compare that with the Papadopoulos. He's getting out of Club Fed today at Oxford, Wisconsin, I believe. 14 days in jail. It went too quick.
For us.
But apparently his crime, lying to the FBI about getting too soused and apparently loose-lipping an Australian diplomat. If that earns you 2 weeks in jail, how does Michael Flynn get away completely and utterly scot-free? I mean, as a former U.S. attorney, Jim, one must think there was a lot of substantial evidence, and mostly it's got to be someone higher up the food chain. I mean, you don't get off for telling the prosecutor something he already knows.
That is absolutely right. And the reference to George Papadopoulos, although it may seem insignificant, is a good one, because George Papadopoulos also, as you indicated, convicted for lying. What was the reason for Michael Flynn's conviction? Also lying. So the same offense conduct, same kind of thing, about a different matter, but same kind of thing. Here we can anticipate that when Michael Flynn is sentenced on December 18th, about 10 days or so from now, on that day, we're going to get even more information about what he did and did not say. Plainly, it underscores once again the huge amount of information that he has provided over the past 12 months. And the fact that the memorandum also indicates these 3 large tranches, if you will, these buckets of things that Michael Flynn has spoken about, only one of which is the SCO investigation involving Russians and the campaign. We've got this other reference, the initial thing that Bob Mueller identifies, 23 lines of redacted information about a criminal investigation. Plainly, that's got to be something other than the Russian investigation with the campaign. And there's a third reference to something else he helped out on. And all those things, again, different from what Bob Mueller has been focusing on. A huge amount of information, a huge amount of information disclosed, and therefore justifying, in Bob Mueller's mind, this, frankly, fairly extraordinary, probably recommendation that he get no jail time at all in a time when his sentencing guidelines indicate 0 to 6 months. You could envision a defendant, even in this situation, getting some jail time. If Bob Mueller says there's none, that means this information is hugely, hugely significant.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. That's James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, joining us in studio on Brady Street. Jim, so does it say anywhere in that document that Michael Flynn actually did do 1/10 of the things that Hillary Clinton did?
It does not make references to percentages.
Okay, all
no,
right.
it does not. But again, if we read literally
Lock 'em up,
between
lock
the
'em up!
lines and underneath the lines, he is certainly talking about many, many things. Now, I'm going to go back to this amount of time. You're going to be spending some time with him talking about his relationships with everybody that he knows.
Yeah.
What is the nature of your relationship? How intimate were you professionally, personally with all these people? And then let's talk about events. Let's talk about conversations, trips you were on, meetings you had, all kinds of things. And that's why it does take that amount of time. That's why this document, again, probably even in its redacted version, is just a summary of what Michael Flynn has provided. It is, again, significant. Cannot overstate the significance of what we've seen here.
Giuliani today effectively trying to get out in front of the sentencing memo of Mueller in regards to Paul Manafort. And Giuliani said, yeah, they say that Manafort's lying, but we think he's telling the truth. Well, is it possible that what Giuliani references is Manafort lying? Trump probably in his own written answers to the special counsel repeated those lies. And now perhaps Giuliani can see his client's goose is cooked along with Manafort's. Do you think that's why he's out there on CNN of all places making these statements talking about Giuliani?
It certainly is a possibility. Again, we don't know with any certainty. We will at some point down the road know about all these kinds of things. There is no doubt that the ripping up of the plea agreement, again, a very, very significant event we talked about last week, does set in motion all these peculiar relationships and the problems with the defense of the president going forward, including Giuliani's representations. So Paul Manafort, again, probably the person who is, as we discussed last week, in the most trouble right now.
Is he going to get the hammer from Mueller?
It is highly likely. Bob Mueller, as I said to you last week, he has had it with Paul Manafort. He ripped this up. Again, understand that Paul Manafort still stands convicted of those felonies, both witness tampering, this omnibus conspiracy count, which we've described in the past as well. He stands convicted. So we're not going back and retrying him on those, but understand also that by ripping up that plea agreement because of the lies, the crimes that Paul Manafort committed, even since that plea agreement was put in place in September, because of that, Bob Mueller has the option now to charge Paul Manafort with more. He could do this again, identify more crimes, and that's also contemplated by the terms of the plea agreement, now no longer in place.
When the plea agreement was put into place, Jim, obviously Manafort admits to certain crimes, right? And then they both sign it. Now that it's been ripped up, do his admissions go away like they never happened and they have to try him on those, or do those admissions stick?
That is a great question, Dom. It goes back to the sentence, the change of plea hearing. At that time, Paul Manafort stood in front of a federal judge who asked him questions about whether or not he understood what he was doing, asked the government to set forth the basic foundational facts for the prosecution and the conviction. And Paul Manafort said, I did this, swore to tell the truth. That conviction stands.
Let's go live to James Comey apparently answering questions. Let's go to live. Westwood One, our partner.
I like and respect Bill Barr. I know he's an institutionalist who cares deeply about the integrity of the Justice Department, so I'm sure he'll use the standard career resources he has to judge what he should be involved in and what he shouldn't be involved in. But Bill Barr is a talented person who was a good Attorney General the first time. I liked him very much then. I think he'll serve the Justice Department well.
But there's a question about whether he should recuse himself from the Mueller probe.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll talk to the career officials about how to handle that.
How extensively have you cooperated with the Mueller investigation at this point?
I can't talk about that.
Have you talked,
Director Comey.
How many times have you spoken?
I can't talk about that.
Director Comey,
I mean, I could, but I won't. I'm sorry.
Director, the Republicans came out and said that a government lawyer sort of ran interference and shut down specific lines of questioning. Did that happen? And if so, what topics were not discussed?
When you read the transcript, then I think you will not see that happening.
Same end. I mean, are there specific topics that you still feel like you can't discuss from your time as FBI director, and you've been out the door for a year and a half now? What can't you answer?
Well, the FBI, for understandable reasons, doesn't want me talking about the details of the investigation that is still ongoing. It began when I was FBI director, and so it makes sense that they don't want me going into those details, but that's a very teeny part of what we talked about today, a whole lot of Hillary Clinton's emails, which will bore you.
You said you're okay with
that the next time the hearing will be public? Was there any talk of that?
There wasn't any talk of it. I think they want to do it the same way. I wish it were going to be public, but I think we're going to have to do it the same way again.
You said you were okay with the Barr nomination itself. Did you have any concerns about the firing of Jeff Sessions and the president continually going after Jeff Sessions for not recusing himself from the Mueller investigation?
I think the president's attacks on the Justice Department broadly and the FBI are something that no matter what political party you're in, you should find deeply troubling and continue to speak out about, not become numb to attacks on the rule of law.
But with the firing of Sessions specifically, did you have
That's not something I can comment on.
Former FBI Director James Comey in a hallway apparently post testimony behind closed doors with the Republicans.
Did you have total confidence in the dossier when you used it to secure a surveillance warrant and also in the subsequent renewals?
I have total confidence that the FISA process was followed and that the entire case was handled in a thoughtful, responsible way by DOJ and the FBI. I think the notion that FISA was abused here is nonsense.
As a private citizen, how do you think Bob Mueller's investigation is going?
As a private citizen, as someone who knows the justice system, I see it proceeding incredibly quickly and very, very professionally. The most important indication of that is you don't know anything about it except when he files something in court, and that's the way it should be.
Are you prepared to return next year when Democrats regain control of Congress to testify perhaps on the questions of obstruction of justice in an impeachment case?
I always want to respect the institution of Congress. I'd love it if they didn't want me to testify, but if they want me to testify and we can do it in a responsible way, I will abide it. So we'll see what happens.
Do you know anything about
Folks who are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show will monitor James Comey not really answering all the questions, not the way I'd like him to, but we got James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, live in studio. He's answering all of your questions. We'll come right back. We are the Devil's Advocates. It's Mueller time. We're still speculating. We're still waiting on the sentencing memos on both Cohen. Government recommends substantial term of imprisonment for Michael Cohen. I guess it's no longer a mystery. We'll digest. We'll come right back with James Santelle. You are listening to the greatest radio show ever, Devil's Advocates. It's breaking for us live. We'll do it live.
There has been no obstruction. There has been no collusion. There has been leaking by Comey. But there's been no collusion, no obstruction, and virtually everybody agrees to that.
How could your wife think there's a 1% chance you were with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow?
Be best.
Have you outgrown your house? Are you sick of apartment living? Not ready to buy but know you need to move? Hi folks, this is Tom Hartman for CCL Management in Middleton. You should consider moving up to one of the finer rental homes CCL Management represents. Unique houses and condos, always clean, most are pet friendly. Visit cclmanagement.com today to find your new home. CCL Management, Dane County's premier leasing and property management company.
Call CCL Management at 833-0009. That's 833-0009 or visit cclmanagement.com today.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only ordering classic corner tavern.
Once again, the American public has some reading to do. In a 29-page indictment today, Americans need to take a look at page 6, paragraph 20, and here come those important 8 words: to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election. That is it.
Jim, I'm going to make a confession on behalf of the panel. Dom's not going to read the indictments.
Come on, maybe.
The Devil's Advocates, political commentary from the back of the class. The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have 1 foot in tomorrow.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. You can check us out on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio. And the party line is 844-967-2789.
Dominic, always a fun Friday when we can discuss history, breaking in real time. CNN reporting government recommends substantial term of imprisonment for Michael Cohen. If I understood Jake Tapper's reporting, the applicable sentencing guidelines would recommend 4 to 5 years. The federal prosecutor saying maybe just a little less than that. But 4 to 5 years is a lot. We got a fine guest, a fine resource. James Santelle, former U.S. attorney in studio. Jim, first blush reaction, a 40-plus page document. We know you haven't read it all yet. Don never will.
I got it right here.
Jim, want to get your first reaction to the news we've seen.
Absolutely. So my initial reaction is, again, much in line with what we were just talking about, which is the comparison between what happened to Michael Flynn, again, cooperating for a year, and Michael Cohen, who apparently has been cooperating recently but not getting anywhere near that kind of a consideration from Bob Mueller. What that says to me is that either the information provided by Michael Cohen, obviously much later than it came in from Michael Flynn, perhaps less significant, less compelling for the investigation, is simply not that helpful to Bob Mueller as he goes ahead.
Is it possible, Jim, just more substantial crimes have piled up against Michael Cohen than perhaps Michael Flynn? Flynn accused of
lying,
deceiving,
right,
and working for a foreign government and not registering as an agent,
right,
and then perhaps lying to the FBI. Crimes of lying, not that those aren't crimes, but Jim, there's been some substantial allegations about Michael Cohen.
Absolutely, and I think that's the other piece. So we've got the investigative piece. How helpful has this been? And then secondarily, you always do look to those underlying criminal events, those pieces of conduct that really should animate a sentence. So as you look back on what Michael Cohen has pled to, it's, again, not only lying, but also we've got 8 counts of tax fraud, campaign violations, false statements. Significantly, again, at the time of his August 21st initial plea, he says it was done at the direction and coordination of a presidential candidate. We know that to be Donald Trump. So that is helpful. On the other hand, I think your point is very well taken, that the underlying charges here and the offense conduct, some of which we know about, probably some of which we do not know about, that may come out in a pre-sentence report. That's significant. That prompts a substantial sentence just below the top end of the sentencing guidelines, as you indicated.
Dominic, you are plowing into this 40-something page document. We don't see any redactions here.
The government's sentencing memorandum. I did not see. I scrolled through the entirety. I did not see a whole lot of black pages like we did for the Flynn document. On page 22, I'm looking at the nature and seriousness of the offenses, and they got them numbered out for us. So let's start with number 1. First, Cohen's commission of 2 campaign finance crimes on the eve of the 2016 election for president of the United States struck a blow to one of the core goals of the federal campaign laws, transparency. So he's getting nailed for that one.
That's paying off porn stars.
Yes. Let's see. Second, looking for second. Cohen undertook similar acts of deception in his private life. He concealed significant amounts of income from the IRS and lied about his financial status in his dealings with banks.
So bank fraud and apparently tax fraud.
These offenses warrant significant punishment for at least half a decade. Cohen willfully evaded paying taxes.
Taxes are for suckers.
Let's see. Third, Cohen similarly flouted his obligation to be truthful in business when seeking financing. Again, looks like bank fraud. To secure loans, Cohen falsely understated the amount of debt he was carrying and omitted information from his personal financial statements to induce a bank to lend based on incomplete information.
More bank fraud.
And finally, Cohen has pled guilty to making false statements to Congress in connection with the congressional investigation.
And look, Dom and Mike, at the language right after that last comment. It lists all of these very serious offenses. This is Bob Mueller writing again. Taken alone, each one of those things we just identified, these are each serious crimes worthy of meaningful punishment, meaning singly, if he had been convicted, we might also be there. But taken together, Bob Mueller continues, these offenses reveal a man who knowingly sought to undermine core institutions of our democracy. His motivation to do so was not born from naivete, carelessness, misplaced loyalty, or political ideology, which again is a reference to his invocation of his relationship with the president, but rather these were knowing and calculated acts that he executed in order to profit personally, build his own power, enhance his level of influence. The nature and seriousness of each of Cohen's crimes warrants a substantial sentence. So that's it. So we've got cooperation here, but we have got this whole package, this series of things, again, which he has pled guilty to, that far, as you indicated, Mike, far exceed what Michael Flynn had pled guilty to. And again, probably a very, very painstaking and appropriate analysis and summary and recommendation by Bob Mueller and his staff.
Now, we know that Manafort has spent a substantial part of this sort of time working its way through the legal process in jail, in prison. What do you think the chance is that when Cohen is sentenced, he will be remanded to the courts immediately? I mean, is this going to be do not pass go, do not collect $200 kind of stuff?
Sure. And again, we always look to two things. One is, are you a threat of are you going to flee? Are you going to remain in the jurisdiction? No suggestion that that would happen. But again, given the seriousness of what's going on here, it may well be that Michael Cohen's future as a businessman, as a lawyer, is pretty much finished. But what kind of safety and security implications are there if he continues to be out there, outside of prison? So I think Bob Mueller has an argument here, given the serious nature of what is identified here, that Michael Cohen should in fact be remanded fairly promptly, or at least given a very, very short breath in terms of his continued custody. That will plainly be objected to and argued strongly, I suspect, by Michael Cohen's attorneys.
James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, our fine guest in the Brady Street studio. Got a few more minutes this hour, Jim. Let me ask you, the accusations against Michael Cohen coordinating the Trump campaign to influence the election, must we presume this means paying off porn stars with $130,000? Or could this also reference what Dom and I were speaking of before? There's apparently evidence that the NRA coordinated ad buys with the Trump campaign. That would also be a violation of federal campaign finance laws. I think Scott Walker broke some state laws as well, but that's beside the point. Jim, do we have any clarity? I realize this is very, very, very recently breaking, but I didn't see anything new to suggest that there are new allegations of coordination. Are we still talking about the two, well, the porn star and the playmate?
And that certainly continues to be the core of this. At least a superficial read suggests that. Again, you recall that when he pled guilty, as I said just a few moments ago, back in August, he said that was done at the direction of the campaign finance violations, done at the direction and coordination of a presidential candidate.
And if he's guilty, by implication, if it was Donald Trump directing him, is Donald Trump also presumably guilty of, at minimum, campaign finance coordination?
We talked about this before. That comment in open court by Michael Cohen in August is very significant. Number one, that doesn't happen absent Bob Mueller and others in the Justice Department, Southern District of New York, knowing that that's going to happen. Effectively speaking through this defendant and through this witness, saying you've got someone who's also involved in a conspiracy. And you also recall that even last week when Cohen pled guilty to lying to Congress, he said, I did that out of loyalty to the president. Again, that connection is compelling, and my guess is we're going to hear more about both of those, perhaps in addition to the other things that you've also identified, Mike.
Anything, we got like 30 seconds, Jim, anything briefly that Comey said that struck you that you can comment on briefly?
I think one of the most important takeaways, again, not a surprise there that he decided not to discuss a lot because, again, he is that good public servant. But I will also say that Bill Barr, a good selection, one of the 9 attorneys general for whom I worked during the course of my period in the Department of Justice, and we will anticipate perhaps some return to some integrity there as well.
The happy hour is upon us. It's Mueller time. James Santelle, please stick around. Former U.S. attorney in the Brady Street studios with the Devil's Advocate. We'll be right back.
Boy, this looks like very big stuff.
You lied to me.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Sinking stocks. Key meeting. I'm Mike Moss. Federal prosecutors in New York are asking for 5 years prison for former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen for crimes including fraud and campaign finance violations, this despite his cooperation with Robert Mueller. The White House is out ahead of court documents that will spell out the lies former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort allegedly told the Mueller-Russia team. Lawyer Rudy Giuliani tells correspondent Dana Bash the big issue is what the president knew about a meeting with Russians to get dirt on Hillary Clinton.
They don't believe when Manafort is saying that the president did not know at the time about the 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Now, there are other things that the Mueller team think that Paul Manafort is just lying about, but as it relates to the President of the United States, that is a key issue.
Former FBI Director James Comey has finished answering questions from Republican House members, making 2 points moments ago.
We could have done this in open setting. And two, when you read the transcript, you will see that we are talking again about Hillary Clinton's emails, for heaven's sake, so I'm not sure we need to do this at all.
President Trump tweets, leaking lion James Comey was told by Department of Justice attorneys not to answer the most important questions. He adds, force him to answer under oath. Stocks took a pounding on Wall Street, losing nearly 5% in 4 trading days. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum on today's losses.
At one point, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down over 650 points today. That was on top of the nearly 800-point drop on Tuesday and Thursday's roller coaster ride. Stocks lost more than 5% of their value in just a few days. Investor confidence has been shaken by a few things, including mixed messages from 2 of President Trump's top economic advisors on their approach to trade talks with China.
The Dow was down 558, S&P down.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Dr. Michael Hicks, Professor of Economics, Director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University. This is troubling math all the way around. According to your mathematics, Michael, when do you think the great state of Wisconsin will get paid back on its investment?
Right. I mean, the answer is the answer is never.
Equal housing lender. President Trump has signed a short-term spending bill to keep the federal government operating for another 2 weeks.
The stopgap bill funds several government agencies and departments at current funding levels until December 21st. The bill buys Congress more time to pass a long-term funding measure that would cover operations through the end of the fiscal year. It also puts off a contentious battle over funding for President Trump's border wall, while at the same time it places the threat of a partial government shutdown right before Christmas. Absent the president's signature on this short-term deal, a shutdown could have begun today. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
White House Chief of Staff John Kelly has reported on the way out and no longer even speaking with the president. Former Attorney General William Barr has been nominated to return to that position. And Heather Nauert, the State Department's current spokesman, has been nominated to become UN Ambassador for the United States, though that position is being devalued by the Trump administration to a non-cabinet level.
5/9, your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Now that lame duck Republicans have passed legislation to curb the powers of Tony Evers and Josh Kaul and limit early voting, that legislation is now on Scott Walker's desk awaiting his signature. Walker can sign the legislation as it is, or he can veto it, or he could reshape it using his line item veto powers. A group of Milwaukee County Board Supervisors, led by Chairman Theodore Lipscomb, say medical services at the county jail should once again be provided by county employees and not a private company. And 2 rival companies are planning to build commuter rail corridors in Milwaukee and surrounding suburbs, packed with high-density housing, retail, and offices. Outside tonight, mostly clear, low of 15 in Milwaukee, 11 degrees in Madison. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We are sliding into the 4 o'clock happy hour. James Santelle, our fine guest, former U.S. attorney, has stuck around, and I'm very happy today because it's Mueller time. News breaking all around us. The Chiron. It's all breaking news at CNN. Apparently, Michael Cohen and the sentencing memo issued by Mueller.
Here's the quote.
Please, you do it, because I'm trying to do this by memory.
Respectfully request that this court impose a substantial term of imprisonment, one that reflects a modest variance from the applicable guideline range. The office also requests the court impose forfeiture in the amount of $500,000 and a fine.
And the sentencing guideline, my understanding, about 4 to 5 years would be typical, so maybe a 3-year term. That's a lot. A time in club bed. James, what was your reaction? I know this is all happening very quickly.
No, I think we were, Dom and I have digested all 38
yeah,
pages
we got
in the break here. We've got this all under our wing here. And so a couple of important things. As we said before, right before the break, this is Bob Mueller talking in great detail about the nature of what Michael Cohen has done, including in great detail the hush money payments to the 2 women here, Karen McDougal, Stormy Daniels. That's laid out in great detail. There are 2 other things that strike me as significant as I look through this very, very quickly. One is about page 32 or so. Not at all inappropriate. You've got the prosecutors here from the Southern District of New York basically telling the judge about the kind of person this is, the quality,
the temperament of Michael Cohen,
the character, that sort of thing. And so if I can just read some of this. While Cohen has submitted letters describing his good nature, the evidence collected and witnesses interviewed in this investigation paint a decidedly different picture, a picture of someone who was threatening and abusive when he wanted to get his way. And so then we've got these blocks, some of which we will not read on the air, so we don't
a little
compromise.
profane in the filings.
There is some profanity in the filings, but the upshot is we've got threats to a journalist investigating a negative story. He says, "I will make sure that you and I meet one day while we're in the courthouse, and I will take you for every penny you still don't have." He talks with some bankers with whom Cohen was seeking to renegotiate a medallion debt. That's the taxi cab arrangement. "I'm going to teach the bank and the government conservator a lesson they've never seen before in their life," and it goes on. And so Bob Mueller is not only commenting, the Southern District of New York prosecutor is not only commenting about what he has done, but the kind of person who is in front of you, Judge, and saying that's also very significant. The other thing that jumps...
I didn't know having a bad attitude got you more time, though, Jim. Maybe I'll have to be... a little nicer going forward.
Rudy, forget about it.
And it all goes again to the criminal conduct, but it is the kind of thing that federal judges, state judges, city judges always take into consideration. Who is this person who is standing in front of me? Are they contrite? Have they made some terrible mistakes in their life, but are they fundamentally a decent person? Here, what the prosecutors in SDNY are saying is that's not the human being you've got in front of you, and know that is reflected in the kinds of things he has done recently and the kinds of criminal engagements that he's also had. The other thing that strikes me, again, I'm looking for this in some great detail because of the tremendous focus in the Michael Flynn document. What about cooperation? We know that Michael Cohen was cooperating, and we've got these references once again on the last pages of this document. Cohen's decision to plead guilty and to provide information in matters is deserving of some credit, is what the SDNY...
Just a little bit.
Some of credit. Indeed, it is the principal reason the office is not seeking a guidelines sentence here. And so, in other words, we're not going to go right at the top. But as noted in more detail above, and this again comes at the end of the document, Cohen was well aware of the standard briefing process in which cooperators in this district regularly participate, again, SDNY, Southern District of New York, and decline to participate. I would add that is true of every district in the country. Here's the important thing. While he answered questions about the charged conduct, the things that he has been investigated for, he pled guilty to, he refused to discuss other uncharged criminal conduct, if any, in which he may have participated. This precludes him from being given credit for substantial assistance and obtaining a 5K 1.1 letter, which again is lawyer speak and sentencing guidelines speak for getting a downward departure of the sort that Michael Flynn is in fact
something
getting.
Closer to a get out of jail free card
exactly
like
right.
Michael Flynn got.
The court should not sentence Cohen as if he has one. That is, the credit given to Cohen should not approximate the credit that a witness with a cooperation agreement would merit. That's the prosecutors out of New York saying there's been some cooperation here. This was not compelling, and he did not, unlike Michael Flynn, did not come forward and talk with us about those other things that he has done, and specifically refused to do that. That is very significant. That's huge, and that's also the reason why we got this recommendation.
Well, it doesn't seem like much deference should be extended to a man who effectively was guilty as sin, got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and it's either confess now or do more time. But when you mention other crimes that may or may not have been charged, apparently there are more stuff out there that Michael Cohen's either witness to or an active participant in that could still affect the boss, right? One must assume.
Absolutely. And again, the Bob Mueller investigation, all these other investigations, whether it's in New York, in Washington, in Northern Virginia, all of that continues. We have not heard the last of all of this. My own sense, where more indictments are coming. The so-called Mueller report, I don't believe is imminent. We've got a lot more charging that's going to be on the public domain very soon.
Well, the FCC makes us turn off the AM signals here in Wisconsin, but we still got people listening all across the country, California, Virginia, Minnesota, and parts unknown. Jim, if you got one more segment in you, I got more questions still. It's Mueller time. Michael Cohen, substantial time in prison. On the very same day that Papadopoulos is finally getting out of jail, I hope they give him some cheese curds before he leaves Wisconsin. We are the Devil's Advocates, 844-967-2789. We'll get to you, your reactions to the breaking news, and perhaps the Manafort will break when we're in the break.
If I were to guess, I have one name in mind.
It's called the Stop Snitching Campaign.
Does that make sense?
Good evening, everyone. Due to FCC regulations and that we are an AM daytime radio station, this now concludes our broadcast day. But you don't have to leave us. We do stream online 24/7 at realresistanceradio.com. That's realresistanceradio.com. Or check us out on the TuneIn app at WRRD. For those of you already streaming, we now continue regular programming, and please welcome your friends from the radio. Say hello, everyone. WRRD 1510 AM and WTTN 1580 AM, Real Resistance Radio. Good night, everyone.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
When they go low, we get high. Tom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Real Resistance Radio, streaming on the YouTubes and the Facebook pages. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio, and we will promise get to the callers at 844-967-2789. But Crudy, we can't do it quite yet. We got this Mueller time going on. Individual 1 mentioned in this document, Crudy. I did a little search. Let's do it again.
Well, don't forget Individual 1 still in studio with us. James Santelle, a fine former U.S. attorney, gives a whole new meaning to the 420 break when you're hanging out with a former U.S. attorney, but please continue.
Essentially, Donald Trump mentioned like 20, 30 times in this document.
But as Individual 1, not by name.
Correct, as Individual
But we
1.
all know that's the Cheeto Jesus they reference.
23 times.
And we've
No
seen
collusion.
that. We have seen that in other documents also. Plainly, other plea agreements, other indictments. There are references to people not by their names, but unmistakably those folks that we know. Roger Stone being among those folks as well. We've talked about that too. You know, as we look through the document here, Mike and Dom as well, and going back again to this issue about the extent to which Michael Cohen was cooperating, there's also some very interesting language about page 15 or so that again talks about his motivations for doing what he did and not did. And again, the SDNY folks say that recognize that there was some information provided here, but it goes on to say, while Cohen's provision of information to the SCO, that is Bob Mueller, merits credit, his description of his actions as arising solely from some, quote, personal resolve as opposed to arising from the pendency of criminal charges and the desire for leniency ignores that Cohen first reached out to meet with Bob Mueller, SCO, at a time when he knew he was under imminent threat of indictment in this district As such, any suggestion by Cohen that his meetings with law enforcement reflect a selfless and unprompted about-face are overstated. Again, I look at that and I see the difference between that and what we saw a couple of days ago with Michael Flynn at the time that Bob Mueller is telling us his involvement, his cooperation was timely, it was early, it helped in the investigation. That's the last paragraph or so of that Flynn document that we talked about before. Here we've got just the opposite. You've got somebody coming in at a time when he knows he's going to be charged. The imminent nature of those charges prompts him to be forthcoming. It's not the selfless kind of act that perhaps Bob Mueller would describe when he sees Michael Flynn.
Jim Santelle, can you please explain for the audience whether or not, let's say, a talk radio host could be charged with obstruction of justice for effectively threatening witnesses? Let's not forget Sean Hannity also shares counsel with Donald Trump. Michael Cohen is Sean Hannity's attorney as well. And Hannity's been going on the air this week and basically saying, snitches get stitches. I know that seems improbable.
We have the sound. Let's play it. Sean Hannity literally telling people not to talk to the FBI without an attorney, if you would please, Brian.
If you're like me and you grew up to revere an FBI agent, and the FBI comes to your house and maybe some crime took place in the neighborhood and maybe you have a little bit of information, but you don't quite fully recall everything, but you're pretty sure you do, the advice I have to give you now is don't talk to the FBI.
Is this witness tampering?
The problem I think that we have here in wrestling with this and even answering that question is we've got now a situation where we've got these mechanisms, whether they're tweets from the president, whether we've got these statements from the Sean Hannitys of the world on radio, making these general recommendations about how people should behave. The reality is that prosecutors will look to specific conduct. If you come to me and you say, Jim, I don't want you to be talking about Dom on this particular matter, that is almost certainly witness tampering. That's obstruction of justice. When I see these larger things, including some of the things by the president talking about Roger Stone earlier on, certainly the things that are coming out of Fox News and Sean Hannity today, those I think go more to intent. What is the purpose? What is your animus? What are you animated by when you're saying those kinds of things? And so when it comes to a specific event of asking a witness to testify in a certain way, discouraging them from testifying, the kind of thing that you say publicly can be used by prosecutors to establish that was your motive, that was your purpose. It may not in and of itself be the basis for a charge, but it certainly reflects on your mindset.
Well, Jim, we got one more quote from Hannity. Perhaps he crosses the bright legal line this time. Play it for the people, Fancy Brian.
It's called the Stop Snitching campaign, and it is taking urban communities by storm. The purpose? Do not cooperate with police on a crime that you witness, no matter how bad. And the result is crimes across America are going unsolved. And what makes this movement more disturbing is that this backroom code of silence is being marketed by big corporations and fueled by the rap music industry.
Oh, that's the prior Hannity attitude about cooperating with apparently law enforcement. Strange how you change when your attorney has just been, issued a sentencing statement recommending substantial prison time.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates. Jim Santelle, former U.S. attorney, joining us in studio. Jim, want to get your reaction to this couple of paragraphs from this piece. After the election, Cohen sought reimbursement for election-related expenses, including the $130,000 payment he made to Woman 2. Cohen presented an executive of the company with a copy of a bank statement reflecting the $130,000 wire transfer. Cohen also requested reimbursement of an additional $50,000, which he represented a claimed payment for campaign-related tech services. Executives of the company, who could that be, agreed to reimburse Cohen by adding the $130,000 and the $50,000, grossing up that amount to $360,000 for tax purposes, and adding a $60,000 bonus such that Cohen would be paid $420,000 in total. Executives of the company decided to pay the $420,000 in monthly installments over the course of a year. At the instruction of an executive for the company, Cohen sent monthly invoices to the company for these $35,000 payments, falsely indicating that the invoices were being sent pursuant to a retainer agreement. The company then falsely accounted for these payments as legal expenses. In fact, no such retainer agreement existed, and these payments were not legal expenses. Kona, in fact, provided negligible legal services to Individual One or the company in 2017, but were reimbursed payments. Kona then received $420,000 during the course of 2017. So to me, I'm reading, well, okay, Individual One, you got Trump personally dialed into this, and you have executives for the company. Now, perhaps the company dialed in and the executives themselves. I mean, could all three of those parties be liable here right now for this campaign violation?
Jim, would you call this being the bag man? He's not really legal counsel so much as a bag man.
What SDNY is plainly saying here is this is not a man who's engaged in the typical attorney-client relationship. He's not doing legal work. You are doing these things. We've often referred to Michael Cohen as being the fixer. And that's this description that you've got in this paragraph right now. You're moving monies around to cover things up. And to your question, Dom, about is there are implications for these other folks? Obviously, Individual One, we believe that to be the president. Michael Cohen, people in the company. This is what we call a conspiracy. This is people getting together, deciding how things are going to move. Money is going to be transferred around. It's money laundering. It is in violation of federal law, certainly state law as well. And there's an awful lot there to unpack in terms of who is responsible for all of this conduct. It's not just one person, not just Michael Cohen, although he is plainly at the epicenter, if you will, of this kind of activity.
Got to ask you, Jim Santelle, about obstruction of justice. My understanding, and I watched the Lester Holt interview with Donald Trump when he said, I fired James Comey because of the Russian thing. Seemed like an outright blatant case of obstruction of justice to, me, a layperson. I guess the question becomes obstruction of justice. We understand that this issue and this investigation started even before Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Andrew McCabe, when he was acting FBI director, started this investigation. Rod Rosenstein knew how they talked about perhaps, maybe in jest, maybe in sarcasm, maybe in consideration, even wiretapping, wearing a wire with President Donald Trump. Now, supposedly that never happened, but what's your interpretation of the newest on obstruction of justice and when the investigation began?
Sure. And the fact that people like Rod Rosenstein, again, as I've spoken before, U.S. attorney with me in Baltimore when I was U.S. attorney here, a smart, decent guy, focused and a great integrity there, looks at these situations even before those events happen and says, we've got to open this up. And we've got Andrew McCabe doing what he's got to do across the street there at the FBI. So that is not surprising that would happen. It's certainly a revelation that comes out today about the extent to which good people in good positions are already identifying, even before Bob Mueller takes over, the nature of these problematic things that are happening. As to the Lester Holt interview, I think that's a very, very good example of what we talked about just before, which is the president in that interview, is he in that interview engaging in obstruction of justice? The answer is probably not. But when he says the reason for my firing James Comey, the motivation, the reason I did that was to shut this down, that's revealing his motive. And so it is not unlikely that Bob Mueller, in his report at the end of the day, whenever that happens, will come forward and say the firing of James Comey was done for the purpose of obstructing justice. What is the support for that? It is the intent shown when President Trump is speaking to Lester Holt and saying, I did that act out of the intent to stop this from going forward. So I know it's a nice legal distinction, but it's very significant. And
did it all start with the loyalty pledge? Couldn't you go easy on Michael Flynn? Couldn't you just let this one pass?
And those kinds of things also, they will probably show up in the report from Bob Mueller about the president's purpose and his intent and his mindset. When you pull somebody aside, you're not necessarily accomplishing an obstruction in that moment, but you're doing these other things, and those comments reveal what your intent is. That's what criminal prosecution is all about.
Jim, last minute, you mentioned to us off air, perhaps a year before we get the Mueller report, Donald Trump's literally losing his mind already. How will he compartmentalize? How will he survive a year?
We've got, even this morning, the president is sending out, I think, 8 different tweets, 300 words, characters, letters, all kinds of things. It is difficult to imagine that if, in fact, as probably today's pleadings, and certainly the pleading from earlier this week with Michael Flynn indicates, we've got more indictments coming forward. There are these other references to other investigations going on. My own sense is that there will be more indictments before the Bob Mueller report is issued, and that we've got a ways to go before that final report summarizing all this comes forward.
Thank you, James Santelle, a fine former U.S. attorney, a friend of ours, a wonderful resource. We are the devil's advocates. We'll check in with you probably Monday, James. We'll be right back.
This Russia thing, there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian people.
Who told you that?
An anonymous, really an anonymous.
Kind of grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Here's how you get them. If someone invites you for a cocktail, you bring them beer. If someone invites you to dinner, you bring a casserole. That's how you make friends. That's the Wisconsin way.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. That's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
I am sick and tired of big power brokers telling voters what's important instead of the other way around. So I joined the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. It's a community of like-minded local progressives where the members help determine what issues are important. And with the aid of professional organizers and some of the top progressive strategists in Wisconsin, we make the powers that be take notice and action. We're working on fair elections, the climate crisis, immigrant rights, electing progressive candidates, and more. Plus, we have a campaign called Radioactive that supports this station and Real Resistance Radio. So, come help us reclaim our power as voters.
Become a member of the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. Go to citizenactionwy.org.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only ordering classic corner tavern. The Resistance broadcasts 7 days a week here on Real Resistance Radio. Tune in Saturdays for Citizen Action's Battleground Wisconsin as it rages from 10 to 11 a.m., followed by Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk with Dr. Tim Slecker airing 11 a.m. to noon. Then it's the voice of the voiceless, champion of the working class. Earl Ingram's Saturday show is live from 12 to 2 p.m. From 2 to 3, State Rep Jocasta Zamaripa hosts the Jocasta Show, and Maggie Dawn leads the Dawn of the Resistance 3 to 5. Mandatory listening, always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Governor-elect Tony Evers is asking citizens to contact Scott Walker's office to tell the governor not to sign the legislation that would limit the powers of Evers and incoming Attorney General Josh Kaul. Summerfest announced another headliner. Bon Iver will play at the fest on June 29th. Lord Huron and Julian Baker will open the show. And the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts in Milwaukee has announced plans to build a sprawling new campus that would include a great lawn for community events and a 5-story projection wall that could be seen from the street. Outside tonight, mostly clear skies, low of 15 in Milwaukee, 11 degrees in Madison. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
We have to bring back law and order.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's the happy hour.
You're good, Brian. You're good, man.
I'm feeling pretty warm and fuzzy. Thank you, James Santelle, for that good feeling on a Friday afternoon. A fine guest, a friend of ours, former U.S. attorney, always a wonderful resource. And we're getting to the phones next at 844-967-2789. Not only do we have the Cohen sentencing recommendation that just broke, and if you haven't heard the news, Mueller and the South District of New York, they're recommending substantial prison time. Maybe not 4 or 5 years, but something close to that. That's a lot worse than Flynn got. And also, we've got a verdict in the Charlottesville, the murder of Heather Heyer. We'll talk about that in this hour as well. But first, to the phones. Once again, 844-96-PARTY.
And we want to thank everyone for listening. And we don't mean to, miss anybody out in Florida or out in Arizona. We know you're there.
Those were the parts unknown.
Let's get to it. Wisco Paul, you are next. Happy Friday. Happy Festivus. What do you got for us?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, how you guys doing today? Hey, I just want to let you know that it's a totally awesome interview with Jim. It's very informative, and that's so cool.
Yeah, we'd like to take all the credit for all of Jim's shrewd and well-educated answers.
Thank you, Jim.
He's a good dude, man. It was really cool. Hey, I would like to say something about, I'm going to still call him Scott Hole because that's who he is. But I've tried to call down there and tell him I'm against taking Tony's power away and Josh's power away. Either the line is busy or nobody answers or they send you to like a voicemail, but you can't. I mean, come on.
They don't want record of dissent, Paul. I like Chris McDonough's bright idea. Send him an email. Force a public record, because simply dialing up all day long, we've seen it reported in the papers. We've had people call us. Calling the governor's office at 608-266-1212 and registering your disgust. No one's going to answer the phone. They don't want to know. Paul, they don't want to know. It's not you. It's the Wankinator.
Yeah, well, is there any chance he's going to veto this anyway?
I mean, theoretically, anything's possible. No, I think he takes the most cowardly route. He doesn't even sign these bills into law. He just lets the prerequisite 10 days pass, and they become law, with or without his signature.
In my opinion, this makes the GOP look really bad. They come up with all these lame excuses of how they were going to do this anyway. I didn't vote for Robin Vos for my governor. It's just pathetic. My hope is that this guy goes down as the worst governor ever in the state of Wisconsin. Because you know what? Like I said, I've probably said this 10, 20 times. With me, it started with the roads, and it just mushroomed into all these other things. It's just crazy. I'm going to have some Spottica tonight. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you.
Call.
Thank you, Wisco Paul.
Mushroom. Suddenly he's talking about Trump's genitalia. CNN reporting Mueller. Cohen provided information about attempts by Russians to reach the Trump campaign dating back to 2015. And I would remind all of our listeners, Scott Walker was the front runner in 2015. He was approached by the Russian spy Maria Butina, both at an NRA convention, also at his campaign launch. So if there were overtures from the Russians to Donald Trump in 2015, one must suspect there were overtures to Scott Walker. And as a guy who has demonstrated he can corrupt to anyone, I mean, if he'll cash the anonymous dark money checks in the state of Wisconsin, if he'll cash lead-based paint manufacturers' checks and then stick it to the victims, the children who are the victims, the cognitive victims of lead-based paint poisoning, he'd have no qualms about coordinating or colluding with the Russians. He was just not a good enough candidate to fully collude. They moved on from him and latched on to Donald Trump.
844-967-2789. Let's keep going on the phones. Tom from Cedarburg, Wisconsin. Hey, Tom, welcome to the Devil's Advocates. What do you got today?
Hey, Tom.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I was wondering if you guys have the tape recording of the rally just before the election up north Wisconsin, where Trump and Bookme and our governor was up there. And near the end of it, when Trump was talking, he made a comment that if Walker lost, that he would not take a phone call for like 2 months. I was wondering if you had that, and if you do, I hope that would make it into another.
Well, our Trump Moseny rally podcast should be up on the greatest radio show actually on the. Where would they find it, Fancy Brian? Make it easy. I'm running out of gas.
Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure it's on both websites. Both the
Real
Devil's
Resistance
Radio and Darn We page.
Thank you.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that, am I still there or no?
Yeah, you're here, Tom.
Oh, sorry. You guys make those really neat commercials, about, like the one that he's, talking to the fake Coke guy and stuff like that. But they're really funny and neat commercials. I think that would be a neat, funny commercial, especially now that he's lost.
I like the way you think, Tom.
Well, Tom, our friends over at the People for People Corporation follow the lead of their own dark money donors. Perhaps we could raise a little scratch and get something worked up.
Yeah, you never know, Tom. Perhaps a small donation at the p4ppc.org would grease those wheels.
844. Too many inside jokes. Go ahead,
just
Fancy.
a point of order. If you wanted to go and check out that rally, your best bet is to go to the Facebook page, the Devil's Advocates Facebook page. There was a little bit blue at the time for us, so we did not put that podcast out there. So it is on the Facebook page. You can see them and watch the Devils live as well.
Are you implying we were as profane as a Cohen sentencing guideline memo?
Just about, but you guys were doing it with style and not anger.
Style and grace. That is the Devil's Advocates.
Both? Couldn't I be both stylish and angry?
Oh, yeah, but angry wasn't your, same club that you kept beating the same thing over and over again like Cohen does.
Let's get to Chris from Sun Prairie. Hey, Chris, happy Friday, happy Festivus. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Chris.
Hi. Well, I heard you mention my name, and I was actually waiting to talk to you about the same thing because I want to remind people that it would be a great idea to go out to walker.wi.gov and to weigh in on these terrible bills that were brought up in the extraordinary session and put extraordinary session in the subject line. That way, when we want to do open records requests, it'll be easy for us to find them and quantify how many people were against this terrible legislation. So I'm really happy to hear that you're promoting it. I'm trying to promote it as much as I can.
Well, you're the smartest girl in class in this regard, Chris. I mean, it's damnably frustrating when you call the governor of the state of Wisconsin, and apparently he's got no staff. They let it fill up the voicemail. I mean, they're so clearly being overwhelmed with people resistant to the idea of him signing this legislation. But B, they're not answering the phones, Chris. You make an excellent point. Give them the email address once again. People need to email. Skip the dial-in. Just email it. Chris, where do they email the gubernator at?
Well, I wasn't suggesting email. I was suggesting going through his contact on walker.wi.gov. You probably could email him too, but I don't have that right in front of me right now, and I think that this is the best way to go because it states right on the website that these are open to open records requests. So I think that that's the way that I'm suggesting people go. So walker.wi.gov, you go out to there's a menu on the right-hand side. You just click on that. It'll drop down a list, and then you just click on contact, and it'll tell you all the information you need to enter there. Stick extraordinary session in the subject line. Tell them what you think. Hit submit.
Chris, I think I saw a post that you put up regarding this. Would you be so kind as to share that on our Facebook page, and we'll make sure that we share it around as well?
Oh, I sure would. Great. I would love that. I've been sharing it to as many groups as I can. And just if you got another minute, I don't know if your ears were ringing there, Mike, but we were singing about you at the sing-along today. I don't know if you've heard our Christmas songs, but you're in
There's a Crudy Christmas song?
For He's a Jolly Good
Well,
Fellow?
It includes you in it. It's Up on the Balcony, which goes, it's to the tune of Up on the Housetops.
Sure.
And it's thanks be to JSO and Crute. This year we gave Walker the boot. You know, yeah.
Wow, I am so honored. I had no idea that I had become famous amongst the individuals that often show up over the lunch hour to protest the bad governance of Scott Walker and the Republicans in general. We like to call them the Solidarity Sing-Along individual participants. But I feel quite honored to have been included as part of the musical, the songs.
I'll post that on your site, too.
Please do. That's awesome. The best news I've heard all day, Chris. That and the sentencing recommendations for Michael Cohen. But, you know, also very good news. It does make me happy in the happy hour. 844-967-2789. I guess Kurt from Madison. Looks like you're next, my friend. What do you got?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Kurt.
See, with Voss and Fitzgerald pushing this crap through, it always begs the question, what's the motive? I know we've talked about motives on the surface, but typically it's also payoff, right? Someone has paid them to push this crap through.
Or they will pay them because the more powerful, more influential you are, the more likely you are to garner big-ass campaign contributions and lobbyist money and PAC money.
There's got to be some underlining dirt somewhere on Voss and Fitzgerald having private conversations with those who want this, you know, basically ripping all the rest of us off. And someone's got to dig into this, because that's the only thing I see that I agree the power thing, but there's a more insidious financial driving motive here. And I hope someone finds it.
Kurt, what do you think about, we had a caller, Joe, I believe, from Madison as well, was bringing up the fact, well, perhaps if they're trying to limit the Attorney General's ability to initiate lawsuits, I mean, if Scott Walker's mentioned the Russians are in, we know that Scott Walker met with her at least twice.
Maria Butina.
Butina was at his run, his celebration, and we know he took lots of NRA money. I mean, if there was an end around about this whole thing, perhaps stepping back a little further and look at Joe's point of view, that maybe they're trying to set it up so the AG cannot start an investigation into what Walker did.
Absolutely. They're scared to death that someone, in this case, we have someone pretty smart that knows how to dig. And I think there's some more than skeletons sitting back there. I think there's piles and piles of cash. And I swear, you just need someone that's going to have some power and authority to start pulling some strings, to start shining the light on these cockroaches. I mean, because that's what they are.
Well,
it really irritates me.
Kurt, I agree with you. They are cockroaches. What I would say, no offense to Josh Call, the incoming Attorney General in the great state of Wisconsin, as much as I'd like to see him digging into alleged campaign finance violations and, of course, quid pro quo. I mean, it's legalized bribery that, or perhaps a upcoming sentencing recommendation. If it was about Russian collusion and they were reaching out, according to the Cohen sentencing memorandum, to the Donald Trump campaign in 2015, one must assume the Russians are also making overtures to Scott Walker after the Iowa Freedom Summit. That was January of 2015. Scott Walker was on top of the world. He had about 25% of the Republican primary anticipated voters supporting his candidacy. Before Donald Trump rolled him under, Scott Walker had big dreams, big aspirations. And if a couple of Sergis came calling, you know he'd have taken that call just like Ian Murphy or the Widow Hendricks. We are the Devil's Advocates. Come back with us. We're going to talk about what happened in Charlottesville. James Fields, guilty of murder by driving a car into a crowd. More Devil's Advocates, more Friday grievances, 844-967-2789.
I know nothing about Russia.
The courts agree with us, too. What's going on in this country?
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The Devil's Advocates.
Tom Perez, chair of the Democratic National Committee. You know, Tom, I didn't know you had all the Badger roots. I got a little hashtag. I'd like to try it out on you. DNC MKE 2020, sir. What do you think, Milwaukee, for the DNC, Tom?
They are one of the cities that has expressed interest. Obviously, the new arena is going to be open and running by them. And I'm sure they will put forth a very, very credible package.
Well, Tom, it's nice that the stadium will be opening up, but also last year on the east side of Milwaukee, the Devil's Advocates and WRRD opened their stations on Brady Street.
Bring it home, Tom.
Wow. Amen. Well, I stayed up all night the night before my wedding, so I went out to a lot of watering holes not too far from there.
You're supposed to skip a night between the bachelor party and the wedding, sir.
I didn't get the memo. I wish we had done this interview 30 years ago.
Making radio great again. The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
We are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Real Resistance Radio. Happy Friday. Happy Festivus. Last segment of the day, of the week. You can still join us. Let us know what your grievances are at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I see we've got our friend from Charlottesville. Let's take him. Jeff Leonard, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Obviously, or perhaps it's not obvious, but there is breaking news from Charlottesville. James Field, guilty of murder for driving car into crowd. This, of course, around the white nationalist uprising in your hometown. Jeff, tell us all about it, man.
Yeah, that's correct. Good afternoon, guys. It always seems like we talk at the worst. We always talk at the worst times. We all remember August 12th when the Nazis came calling, and, gradually, one by one, our court system has been handling the worst of them as they came through. So today, about an hour ago, jury just came back and convicted James Fields of first-degree murder, a couple of aggravated malicious woundings, and a few malicious woundings for the car attack on August 12th. And it is... What they've had to do is, since it was a jury trial and Virginia has a bifurcated sentencing system, they've got to come back on Monday to hear sentencing evidence, and they're going to recommend a sentence sometime next week. But look for the sentence to be the lowest sentence the jury can give is going to be over 100 years. So it's going to be the only question was he guilty of premeditated murder, or was it sort of a heat of passion, or was it self-defense? The jury decided it was first-degree murder, and I don't think Mr. Fields will ever go home.
Is this a capital crime in Virginia, Jeff? Is the death penalty in play?
No, he was not charged under our capital murder statute, so it is not a death penalty eligible case. The only question following up that is there is a pursuing federal charge, and the feds do have a death penalty eligible charge against him, and the Attorney General hasn't yet decided whether or not they are going to pursue the death penalty as part of the federal trial. I don't think the federal trial has been set, and the only question there is are they going to pursue the death penalty on that level?
Breaking news from Charlottesville, Virginia. James Field found guilty of murder for driving a car into a crowd and, of course, killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer. Jeff, what do you think the Charlottesville reaction will be to this verdict? A, do you think they think it is just? And B, will this help with the healing, Jeff?
Yeah, I really hope it helps with the healing. This is the absolute best verdict in this circumstance that the survivors of August 12th could have expected and could have hoped for. So I'm sure that they are very they're relieved at what the jury came back with. And my concern is that, this is the day they've all been building up for and preparing for. And not unlike a funeral, now that there's really nothing to look forward to or to prepare for, there's going to be an emptiness that, what do we do now? And I hope, and they've done such a great job coming together and taking care of one another. And they've got counselors and they've got funds to go. Anybody that needs therapy can get therapy. And the city has rallied around them. So I think there's a good chance that anybody that needs help will get it. And this is just the next step. And the next stage that we go into, I think, is going to be, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's got to be better than where we came from. I was in the trial probably 3 or 4 days over the past 2 weeks. And, watching the interplay of the jury was, nobody knows who they are. All you know is what their numbers are. But watching them, they were attentive, they were deliberative, they were engaged. Sometimes you see jury trials where jurors are falling asleep. Not here. These are citizens from Charlottesville. They did yeoman's work, and I really, appreciate the defense attorneys, the prosecutors, the judge, but especially the jury. The jury gave of themselves, and nobody wanted to be on this jury, but they really seemed to take their job very seriously, and I think we should appreciate them.
Jeff, what was the demeanor of the defendant in court, if you could describe it?
He was very quiet. He sat there, didn't make a whole lot of movements. The only person in the courtroom that was really, the prosecution has one side with all of its sort of supporters, and then the defense has the side, and the only supporter he appeared to have in the courtroom was his mother. So there was occasionally a glance up to his mom, but he was quiet, not animated at all, just didn't make a whole lot of movements. There was a little bit of interaction with his attorneys, as you would expect, but he was, sometimes you can see defendants being, animated and telling their attorneys what to do. He was just sitting there quietly, making some notes, participating in his defense, but not really, nothing, kind of just sullen, nothing to really speak of other than just sitting there.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Got a fine friend and a fine guest live via phone. He's Jeff Leonard. He's calling in from 94.7 WPVC FM in Charlottesville, Virginia. Jeff, we're about out of time here, but for the sake of our audience, what else do you think people here in Wisconsin, across the country, should know about this resolution, this murder conviction in Charlottesville? What else should we know?
If you come to a town intent to do harm, or you come to Virginia, Virginia is known for a very expedited criminal justice system. If you do something bad and you hurt somebody, we're going to hold you to account. And you know what? That's what we do. And I'm proud of the prosecutor. And I think if you are going to protest, you can protest all you want. But when you start hurting people, you've crossed the line, and you're going to pay.
Jeff Leonard, our good friend from Charlottesville, Virginia. Jeff, I know you are an entrepreneur as well, and you got the Trump deck of lies. You still selling them for Christmas?
Yeah, the deck of lies. We've, with the trial, with the radio station, that's taken a little bit of a backseat. But coming up in 2020, I'm sure Fat Donnie is going to be coming out with his 2020 campaign. So hopefully we'll make a comeback and bring that back up.
Thank you, Jeff Leonard, for calling in and updating us the murder conviction in Charlottesville. I want to thank our fine guest, James Santelle, stuck around for about an hour, helped us sort out the newest on Michael Cohen. And thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. This is our life's passion.
And finally, Kurt, let's remind people, breaking news, new Mueller filing says Trump's ex-lawyer, Michael Cohen, was in touch with a Russian seeking political synergy with the campaign. Washington Post reporting.
Maria Butina? Sound familiar? Wanker? Come back Monday when we do it all again.
Give me love, give me your thunder, show me right, leave a little wonder, all the way, oh, I keep messing up, all the way, oh, I keep messing it up. I drank beer with my friends.
Just one more thing.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
He called me fat and...
Hi, Resistance Radio listeners. This is Kim Schrader, the president of the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association. We are the 4,600 educators who make Milwaukee's public education system possible. MTA members are the guardians